I don't know if there's a Digimon season in existence that I have more mixed feelings on than Digimon Ghost Game. The 9th Digimon anime series and the first to follow the 2020 reboot of Digimon Adventure, Ghost Game ran from the fall of 2021 to the spring of 2023, providing a creepy, light horror spin on the world of Digimon, emphasizing the monster element of digital monsters. Unlike past Digimon series, the show was not particularly focused on an ongoing story, instead opting for one-off and sometimes repetitive story concepts, other times really unique story concepts, but frustratingly, it had great concepts that could have made for an incredible overarching story, and it would not stop hinting at what I believed was going to be an amazing overarching story. So did it deliver? Did it land on its feet and live up to the long legacy of great Digimon anime? If you watched my channel week to week when the show was airing, you have an idea of what I think, but this video is a supercut of my 67 episode reviews. I loved cutting this together because you, the viewer, get to watch as my thoughts on the show rise, then fall, then rise back up and fall again in real time in a single video rather than waiting week to week. The episode reviews here are cut down from roughly 8 minutes each to 1 to 3 minutes and really focus on the main takeaways of each episode. So if you want my entire 7-hour review series, the original videos all still exist and I'll link to that playlist, but if you want a supercut Digimon Ghost Game series review to learn about the show for the first time, or if you want a nostalgic trip down Ghost Game memory lane, this is the video for you. I'm gonna have new videos on the channel in a couple weeks. I'm just away and unable to edit a brand new video from scratch, so thank you for your patience. Intro out of the way, here's my complete review of the 9th Digimon anime series, Digimon Ghost Game. 1 week after the finale of the 2020 Digimon Adventure reboot, there's a brand new original Digimon series that just premiered. There hasn't been a back-to-back series handoff like this in almost 20 years since Tamers to Frontier, so it feels like the future of Digimon is bright, but it's also dark based on the first episode of Digimon Ghost Game, which appears to be delivering us a horror-themed take on the premise of digital monsters appearing in our world. So let's begin at the beginning. Digimon Ghost Game is set in the semi-distant future in Japan. We know we're in the future because Hero's phone shows 7G service, and AR-style holograms play a vital role in urban living. There's a hologram stop sign, a holographic yellow caution tape later in the episode. The prevalence of hologram tech is probably why when the rumors first start spreading about ghost sightings, the kids around town, they kind of brush it off as some lame hologram advertisement campaign that missed the mark. We, the viewer, quickly learn it is no game though when in the first 4 minutes of the pilot, we see this young teenage girl have the age sucked out of her, shriveling up with the creepiest looking take on Clockmon you've ever seen. We cut to our new central protagonist, the no goggles wearing Hiro, H-I-R-O. There's this extended flashback to Hiro tiptoeing around his family house, stepping into his dad's laboratory slash workstation and finding almost a crater where his dad's desk is supposed to be. In the crater is the vital bracelet that Toei and Bandai have been promoting in real life for about a year. The cynical take is obviously that yes, this is the product placement part to sell a fitness watch Digivice to viewers, but there's also a part of me that loves when the real product fits into the world of the show. Kid me loved Power Rangers morphers, and it was because the heroes in the show had them too. Same with Digivices, obviously. Hiro goes back to his room where he hears shifting around. He remembers the bracelet and pulls out a box containing 3 bracelets. Clearly his 2 other Ghost Game partners will be getting these in the near future. When Hiro pops a certain chip into the bracelet, we hear his father's voice as the Siri-style operating system for the vital bracelet, but perhaps the weirdest part of this scene and coolest is what looks like a black Gatomon slash Tailmon wearing a sleeveless hoodie. It points to a corner of Hiro's room before completely disappearing. This is a great little mystery setup moment. I need to know what that scene was all about. Next, Gamamon appears, and this little guy already feels like the perfect main partner Digimon. The voice is excellent, so adorable. Even though this will be a horror-inspired series, they're giving us a super sweet little buddy. Virtual grass appears in Hiro's dorm room, as does a recorded hologram message from his dad explaining that what he's seeing is the digital world. Quote, well, it's like a cyberspace. I don't know too much about it, but it's cool, huh? Starting today, Gamamon is your little brother, which we need to talk about how precious, funny, and refreshing this is. That the dynamic is not that they're partners or co-cops or friends. It's that Gamamon sees himself as Hiro's little brother. It's incredible. We then get Clockmon's 3rd appearance this episode, but this time Hiro has Gamamon who lunges at Clockmon. The two fly out the window and Hiro chases after in the middle of the night. Gamamon gets thrown around a little bit, and for a mysterious minute, we see this dark aura forming around him. It's a great tease for a future evolution for sure. We get the great Digimon back and forth that you expect from a pilot, where Hiro says, I don't understand what's going on, but you're my brother, right? Gamamon gets a lot of power from that acceptance and uses a new technique called Break Claw that deals enough damage to Clockmon that it actually de-ages the two kids in the hospital. They get their youth restored. Interestingly, Clockmon gets away at the end of the episode. I didn't really expect that. He's not defeated entirely. At the end of it all, Hiro collapses from exhaustion by Gamamon's side, and Gamamon says, take good care of me, while Hiro asks, Dad, what in the world just started? I am feeling really good about this pilot. They weren't afraid to get creepy with the nightmarish way Clockmon stole those characters' youth. I'm very excited to hit reset on Digimon and fully experience a brand new take on the franchise. It's the very next day after the Gamamon versus Clockmon battle. On that same night, elsewhere in town, a man has missed his train and is abducted by Mummymon. We soon learn that this isn't his first victim, and Mummymon has been collecting and wrapping dozens of humans. In the morning, Hiro confirms last night wasn't a dream, and then asks Gamamon what he can tell him about his dad's location, about Digimon in general, and the digital world. And of course, Gamamon doesn't give us anything juicy here. That we get the amazing realization that people in the human world who aren't partnered with Digimon can still see some Digimon, or at least they can see Gamamon, who is sort of in this non-translucent 100% opacity form. There's a brilliant setup here where some classmates and later a store clerk ask Hiro what that cute thing in his backpack is, and he claims Gamamon is an AI hologram. It's perfect. I love this. The folks he talks to about Gamamon just say, wow, they're made so well these days, referring to AI tech. I love that moving forward we won't have to be hiding Gamamon per se. That can be fun in Digimon stories, but we've had it in Tamers and in other series like Adventure, so I like this new uncharted territory where simultaneously humans don't know what Digimon are, but they also don't care that Hiro is carrying this little dinosaur in his backpack. We tour the museum a bit. Gamamon points at a dinosaur and asks what Digimon it is. If last week was the ideal first episode for a new Digimon series, this is the ideal second episode. I honestly can't imagine having this gone any better, and we're not even done yet. We have a round 1 fight with Mummymon versus Gamamon in the museum. After a short but fast and fluid fight, Gamamon is pinned to the wall. Hiro is wrapped up and abducted, taken underground. It's pretty claustrophobic, and the series isn't pulling any punches with the horror vibes, with characters in the underground all wrapped up and saying things like, I don't want to die. It turns out Mummymon legitimately thinks he's helping the humans who are exhausted at the end of their rope. He basically spawned near the museum, so he's just seeing clips of mummification in the human world and thinks this is the peak of modern medicine and science. He's working with bad information essentially, and it's kind of a surprising and cool concept. I like this. Here, the Digivice V Vital Bracelet starts reacting, and we get Gamamon's evolution, the first evolution of the new series. Betel Gamamon is both cute and cool looking. Huge props to the monster designers of this season. I'm loving the new Digimon we've seen in the opening so far, and seeing Betel Gamamon in the show, it did not disappoint. Oh, by the way, the track that they use absolutely rules, but very smartly, this fight isn't about whoever can punch hardest. Betel Gamamon really just stuns Mummymon, frees Hiro, and then it's up to Hiro to end the conflict by appealing to Mummimon's sensibilities as a doctor or as a Digimon interested in medicine and science. He tells Mummymon that mummification is a science that is thousands of years old and not really recognized today as a legitimate practice. He even tells Mummymon that there are some hospitals around that he should go learn from if he's interested. Mummymon frees the humans he kidnapped and seems to calm down a lot. This is now 2 villains, Clockmon and Mummymon, that are still out in the world after their episodes. I was surprised by this and I liked it a lot. One is still seemingly evil, Clockmon, while Mummymon has kind of turned a new leaf, it seems. At the very end of the episode, Hiro and Gamamon are heading home, stopping for food when they see that girl Ruri being followed by a transparent Angoramon. Surprisingly, the first 10 or so minutes of this episode are completely free of Hiro and Gamamon, in favor of giving us the time and space to focus on our new Digimon tamer, Ruri Tsukiyono, and the digital hex that has been placed on her. Seeing how the last Digimon season, Digimon Adventure 2020, needed Taichi and Agumon to seemingly be ever present, I think it shows a lot of confidence and vision that Ghost Game felt it could move the spotlight away to focus on other things besides Gamamon, and I applaud them for that. This really is Ruri's episode through and through. Plus, absence makes the heart grow fonder, and when Gamamon does show up again after a long wait, it makes it that much more satisfying. Back to the episode review, we began with Ruri and her girl squad of rumor hunters. I'm still not super sure about what they are. They're learning about this phenomenon where graffiti-style scribbles are appearing in people's photographs. The marks are always on the subject's body, and in the real world, those body parts are having disastrous side effects 48 hours later, like a broken leg or hair growth. Unlike the last 2 weeks, the show does not tell us who the villain is right away, so we get this fun guessing game for longtime Digimon fans trying to figure out who these powers remind us of. A photo of Nudie has scribbles on her hand, and she horrifyingly realizes that her hands are fading from existence. It's extra scary because she is a brilliant piano player, as we come to learn, and has at least one super fan, but more on that later. She does the math in terms of when the photo was originally taken and realizes she has until the day after tomorrow at 2 p.m. before something horrible happens, presumably her or her hands fading away entirely. I like that she isn't necessarily afraid of ghosts, but like anyone in this scenario would be, she's afraid of fading away, and I think that's a perfectly reasonable reaction to what's happening to her. Keep in mind, we are 9.5 minutes into this episode without a single Digimon sighting or mention, and that is not a complaint. That is high praise of the storytelling aspirations and atmosphere of this show. Again, no Hito or Gamamon in the first half of this episode, which I feel like is respecting Nudie as a character and respecting us as an audience to say, hey, we know we can trust you to be able to let us tell you a cool story without the cute baby dinosaur on screen all the time. But speaking of that cute baby dinosaur, his partner and older brother Hito sends a DM to Nudie saying that in the event that she's having strange things happen to her, he may be able to help. He of course knew to reach out in light of that final shot in episode 2 where he saw a Digimon flying above her. They meet the next day, only 2 hours before Rudy's deadline with the Hex, and just as Hiro expected, there's this giant Digimon Angoramon hovering behind her that she's not aware of. Nudie gets to meet Gamamon and learns there is apparently a creature like him behind her, just not visible to her right now. Angoramon speaks up, though only Hito and Gamamon can hear, and explains that the culprit is a Digimon named Dracumon that uses eyes on both hands to play pranks on digital photos of humans. Knowing that Dracumon is interested in materializing, Hito runs back to campus, grabs the spare vital bracelet that he has, and tries to give it to Nudie to let her materialize Angoramon, but it's also kind of bait to make Dracumon appear since it wants nothing more than to materialize. The trap works, and he appears. She puts on the vital bracelet Digivice, and Angoramon becomes a fully materialized Digimon in the real world. I like that we don't get the evolution to its next form just yet, because he's only just been introduced. Angoramon beats Dracumon, who lifts the curse on Nudie and the others, gives up its eyeballs, which are what caused the curses, and flees. But right at the end of the episode, we discover that Dracumon has backup eyes and didn't really have the change of heart it claimed to have. I was pretty relieved to see this because I did think it was a little too fast and too easy that Dracumon changed its evil ways after a single short beating. The fact he's still out there is kind of horrifying considering we saw how intense its powers can be pre-materializing. I mean, it almost erased Nudie, and now it's probably extra interested in materializing. I continue to be impressed with Ghost Game if it wasn't obvious already. With the 5th episode of Digimon Ghost Game, we have officially been introduced to all 3 of the main Digimon partners of this season, Gamamon, Angoramon, and now Kyoshiro's partner, Jellymon. This was feeling like a world-ending threat that should occur way later than episode 5. We come to learn precisely why Kyoshiro is being haunted and bullied by Jellymon, and it's a pretty amazing reason. It's not that he's like a gifted ghost whisperer or a chosen child or anything. She basically just thinks he's a huge nerd, big weeb, and one of the most easily scared humans she's ever encountered, so his reactions just make it really fun for her. She outs him as being this incredibly smart kid who was studying in America and had his master's, all that boy genius stuff, but he actually decided to move back to Japan, not for family or anything, but because he watches a ton of high school anime and wants to live out his anime-inspired fantasy of being this cool dorm leader and senpai. All throughout the episode, we've been seeing point-of-sale systems and other monetary systems like banks acting up, very our war game style, of course, and at this point in the episode, this massive holy dragon Digimon appears, the envoy of the god of wealth, Majiramon. Majiramon's duty is to wealth, to properly preserve the flow of money. Anyone who stops or disrupts that will not be forgiven. A powerful light will gather in the sky and 108 arrows of light will rain down on that person's body, and that person is unfortunately going to be Kyoshiro. Jellymon asks him why he won't just bail and run away a few times. He says things like he can't do that because he's the dorm leader. Jellymon is a little inspired by Kyoshiro refusing to retreat, and the two of them start hacking together while the others fight on the front lines. Not sure how this Digimon learned to type, much less code, but I do not care. This is great, visually and story-wise. Gamamon and the others can't hold off Majiramon, and when he approaches, Kyoshiro and Jellymon get some serious whiplash. They're seemingly knocked out or losing consciousness when Jellymon says, "You don't have the time to pass out, you're the dorm leader." Kyoshiro is reminded of his responsibility to his dorm. He has this very cool guy standoff, refusing to back down, declaring he is the dorm leader. Very, very Joe Senpai from Digimon Adventure 2020, and the art is looking great here. He's able to reach a new level of connection with Jellymon, which activates BB Thunder, a cannon-based attack. clock that's able to fast track the destruction of those digital talismans. It returns things to normal, which appeases Majiramon. Things return to the way they are, and the episode wraps with the gang catching their breath in a park, and we have what, to the best of our knowledge, is going to be the core trio of Digimon and human partners for this season. Digimon referencing Alfred Hitchcock is a string of words I never in a million years thought I would be saying, but here we are with episode 7. But the birds homage wasn't the only takeaway this week. We also saw winter outfits for all of the new main characters, including 2 of the Digimon, saw a brand new champion evolution make its animation debut, and we kind of got an adult Digimon tamer, a human adult who was working in collaboration with a Digimon as the villainous duo of the week. The reason I'm putting so much emphasis on this human partnered with an antagonist Digimon is because I think Ghost Game is up to something. In episode 3, Dracomon was desperate to materialize, and to do so through a human partner. I love a good Dark Digidestined storyline, and I'm still thinking Dracomon is going to return with a human to help power him up. Now, could it be possible that Daigo partners with Dracomon in the future? Maybe Daigo thinks doing so will help him find Yatagaramon again, or maybe Dracomon tricks Daigo into the partnership by pretending to be Yatagaramon while invisible to Daigo. I'm not sure, but I'll be keeping my eyes peeled. Gamamon wants to fly and needs to fly if he's going to survive, so an evolution into Chaos Gamamon is triggered. After Chaos gets his wings, the enemy Digimon runs away. This is slightly different than the Clockmon escape, where that seemed like when he fled, it was because he was losing. I kind of got the feeling Yatagaramon was winning until it bailed. Just when we were starting to think that the new Digimon horror anime kind of needed to pick up the pace plot-wise, we got episode 8, which absolutely went all gas, no brakes, with a street racing episode that gave us the anime debut of Sistermon CL, culminated in this huge moment with the return of the mysterious Black Gatomon from the pilot episode, and in the teaser for episode 9 at the end, it showed the first evidence of villains who got away in this show returning. Sistermon CL is a champion obsessed with speed and will do anything to be the fastest and strongest. Sistermon is involved in the rumored nightly procession and is clearly our lead into discovering what's going on. We're on the highway now, but the kart racers aren't the only ones on the road. The nightly procession appears, they politely ask Hiro how humans got caught up in the race. Metal Phantomon shows up and is chasing the pack, actually attacking other Digimon on the road and sealing them in its sights. Everyone on the team is running low on gas, and it looks like the end when the Black Gatomon / Tailmon from episode 1 reappears out of nowhere and opens a portal of some kind, presumably into the digital world. Angoramon screams, "Everyone get out of the way," and our team pivots to dodge the gateway, but the other racing Digimon, they all fly straight into the portal that the Black Gatomon opened up within a thermos, or kind of like a rice cooker. Love that they reminded us of this Digimon, and now it seems they are way more powerful than any of us predicted when seeing Black Gatomon in episode 1. Episode 9 of Digimon Ghost Game gave us the most information thus far on the rules of this universe. You know, how Digimon and their various forms work, how they traveled from the digital world into the human world, what happens to humans attempting to go to the digital world, and much more. We also saw the return of the first enemy from episode 1, Clockmon. The team decides to visit a library, one that Jellymon is familiar with as she studies human culture around town. Apparently it's haunted, book pages will flip when there is no breeze, and other weird phenomenon happen, like digital screens having the text all messed up. Turns out to be 2 Digimon, Bakumon and Bokomon, with Bokomon probably being best known from Digimon Frontier. In this show, he is a professor, and the kids ask him, being a professor, you must know a lot about the digital world, right? He does. He has a lot of information for not just the team, but for us. Unlike when Digimon exist as data, Digimon are able to materialize when those different types of feelings come pouring out of the heart. Digimon materialize when they are not like data, but more like humans. However, there are also bad Digimon who can use their glee from hurting people to try to speed up their materialization, like Dracomon. So apparently, if I understood correctly, through enough mischief causing and hauntings, some holographic Digimon in the hologram ghost stage can materialize even without the need of a human partner. Hito asks what the reason Digimon come to our world is, but Bokomon doesn't really know, just saying there seems to be a greater force at work, kind of teasing a larger enemy of some kind. All Bokomon knows is that a gate suddenly appeared one day in the digital world, and he ended up here in the library. And then the final lore drop of this episode is that apparently humans passing through the gate into the digital world may burn up through entry when their bodies digitize. We know Hito's dad seems to have successfully bypassed this and is currently in the digital world, but we're left with the impression that if our team attempted right now to go through a portal into the digital world, their real world bodies would burn up. It's the Gamamon versus Clockmon rematch. It reflects Clockmon's Chrono Breaker back at him, and after losing control, Clockmon's own time is only moving forward, it's spinning out of control. level. Clockmon looks genuinely distressed, and Hito asks what will happen to him in this world. Bokumon isn't actually sure, and then Clockmon begs for help to save his life. Hito is determined to save him, and so Gammamon evolves and they all get to work in a scene that is kind of simulating CPR, and I found it weirdly moving and humanizing for all parties involved. They literally save this Digimon's life, and it's a Digimon who has been nothing but cruel to them being saved by CPR. Definitely not how I thought the Clockmon rematch was going to go down, and I applaud them for this take on the fight, on the confrontation. After being saved, Clockmon says, I guess I can't really attack people anymore after meeting people like you. Bokumon offers to give invisibility training to Clockmon since he can't, very well go walking around in the human world in this current materialized state because he's super horrifying. The others, like Jellymon and Angoramon, say that they actually want the training too, so they can control their state without having to rely on the Vital Bracelet Digivices, I suppose. Lastly, Bokumon compliments Gammamon's evolution into Betel Gammamon and says, quote, that evolution could have been the result of you and Hito's feelings combined. The 10th episode opens with a kid playing a 2D fighting game in basically PlayStation VR when his avatar gets decimated by King Kakumon, and we get the classic 2000s and 2010s horror trope of, real world consequences to losing in the video game. A new rumor begins spreading about a beautiful lady appearing in the game and players who encounter her disappearing in real life. Again, I love Digimon wrestling with modern tech. This is 2021, so yeah, why wouldn't Digimon tackle VR and the fighting game community? It's everything we always wanted to see. The only plan the boys can come up with is bringing Kiyoshiro out of retirement to play one last game of Fighter's Kingdom and work his way up to the mysterious, beautiful woman. King Kakumon appears, and then Jellymon hacks her way into the game, so she's actually playing in place of Kitoshiro's fighting avatar, and then she says something very sweet, which is, we were strong because we had each other. And we get another cool boy Kitoshiro moment, just like in episode 5 when he stepped up to the plate, only this time they're able to activate Jellymon's evolution into Tesla Jellymon, who I absolutely adore. All indications are pointing to this being the best Digimon season since 2001's Digimon Tamers, honestly. Obviously, anything could change, but there's so much going on in these 10 episodes to be hopeful about. And at the core of all of this, all these mysteries and all these plot threads, we have 3 super strong human protagonists. And of course, along with those 3 new heroes, there are 3 incredible Digimon partners with fantastic classic designs and really promising evolution designs. Now, in most iterations of this series, the Digimon truly is an accessory to the human, effectively their pet, and very rarely having a depth of personality besides being funny or cute or both. But in the case of Angoramon in this week's episode, we got a great look at a Digimon who wants to be partnered with a human, but who also has other friends and another life, and then we see our human character kind of wrestling with the idea that her Digimon isn't just her 24-hour companion, and coming to terms with that. Episode 12 of Digimon Ghost Game saw things really start to escalate with Gammamon getting a 3rd evolution form, but also a widespread infestation of hologram ghosts attacking the general public. So what does that mean? Is the cyber attack the start of humans in Ghost Game realizing that hologram ghosts aren't just AR advertisements or rumors, but actual digital monsters? Or is it just another Monster of the Week episode? This one is effectively a chainmail/chain letter episode, with Zasomon spreading via emails that ask you to send this email along to 20 other people or be cursed for 3 days. We learned through Bokumon that we could limit the damage if we gather all the Zasomon in one place, and that one place is the digital AR field. Then we get Gammamon's 3rd alt evolution, Wezen Gammamon. He's a tank in every sense, a Triceratops tank with the firepower to blast through a bunch of these clones. But as soon as my excitement levels were elevating, things simmered down as we meet the original Zasomon, who explains that he got lonely when he arrived in the human world and started cloning himself and let things get out of control. Then this elder Zasomon takes all of the clones and just kind of walks away. I have been a fan and a defender of most of the resolutions that involve talking down the enemy in Digimon Ghost Game, but I think this one landed with an absolute thud for me. The whole point of the talking resolution is that so the fights aren't predictable, punch harder battles every week, but if the point is to avoid predictability, you aren't really succeeding when every single week we know it's going to end with a talk and the realization it was a misunderstanding. This one in particular just really didn't work for me due to the high stakes, with potentially the entire world hours away from a hologram ghost infestation, and just to resolve it with, oops, my clones got carried away, I'll tell them to stop. I seriously thought we were transitioning into that post-introduction section of this new show where it would stop being week-to-week adventures and champion evolutions, and we'd be getting this new era where, thanks to Zasomon appearing in the real world, like, the chainmail incident, people would suddenly be aware that these Digimon weren't just hologram advertisements, but no, it's ultimately just another Monster of the Week episode. Can you guys believe Gulis Gamamon, the Dark Digivolution of the new main Digimon Gamamon? We had seen the art for this guy previously, and I just thought he would be either silent but deadly or like Berserker mode, kind of a raging Digimon. I did not expect this intelligent, vengeful, sadistic monster that we got. In Digimon Ghost Game, it's been established that Digimon are appearing in the human world, but they don't even know how or why they got here. The ones that are here are largely minding their own business. That's true with some major exceptions, including a Digimon this week who's hunting and brutally hunting other Digimon for mysterious reasons. Cialstramon is one-shotting other Digimon with knives to the head that make them burst into pixels and disappear forever. Digimon is obviously no stranger to dealing with characters dying. I mean, we all remember what happened to Leomon, but it's the first time a Ghost Game has confronted the concept head-on, and they clearly aren't holding back with how brutal this week's episode was. We still can't see or confront Cialstramon, who eventually gets a clear shot directly at Gamamon's forehead. Several characters rush to dive in front of the knife and protect Gamamon, including his human partner Hito, but the first character to make it is Bokomon. This is a brutal character death, stabbed in the back literally, and he goes down hard. Gamamon is absolutely broken and confused. It's like explaining the concept of passing away to a toddler. He can't even really comprehend something or someone being permanently gone, and the anger plus confusion stacked with sadness, it all piles on to activate this dark Digivolution that we knew was coming since episode 1, Gulis Gamamon. Like I mentioned, this dark Digivolution, it's not a Berserker mode kind of thing. Like, he's cognizant, smart, sadistic, and thirsty for revenge. Gulis quickly overwhelms Cialstramon and demands to know who called the hit, but according to Cialstramon, it was nobody. The whole thing, it's just a numbers game. It wanted to get its number higher, so 998, 999, 1000, and it wasn't going to stop either by that logic. It would just keep going, which is probably worse than having a person calling the hit. This is purely cruel. Gulis punishes him by jabbing its tail into the enemy's brain. At this point, Gulis Gamamon tries to abandon the squad. He says, "See you later, hero," sarcastically, and then tries to break out of the AR dimension into the human world. The team tries to stop him because we can't let this monster free in the human world. Tesla Jellymon and Angoramon briefly battle him, but they're both knocked back down. It's no use at all. He's on a completely separate level. Gulis lays it all out saying, quote, "It feels good crushing people. I'll show you that we only have two options, eat or be eaten." And then he flies towards Tesla Jellymon for a finishing blow, but Hero jumps in the way. At first, even this doesn't seem to impact Gulis, but suddenly it has these flashbacks to Bokomon being impaled earlier in the episode and collapses to the ground, then de-evolves to Gamamon, who doesn't remember anything after Bokomon being stabbed. It's a devastating, dark, and depressing episode, and definitely the jolt of plot that the show has been needing, but it's not as mysterious as the black Agumon that is standing over our heroes watching silently. I have no idea what this implies, but please let it mean Black Wargreymon is coming to Ghost Game. Gamamon is definitely off after the events of the last episode, and so I'm glad that we're not just pretending that didn't happen here in episode 14. We are at a beachside resort. Gamamon is definitely quieter, but doesn't truly understand why he's off his game, though as we learn, doesn't really know what happened last week. He tries a new delicacy and says, "I'll take this to Bokomon to try," then asks where is Bokomon. Well, Hero says he left for a long journey. It's a really tragic scene and kind of gut-wrenching to know that we're moving forward without letting Gamamon know exactly when down. I just hope it doesn't come back to haunt us if the truth ever gets out. Elsewhere in the resort, a ghost is tossing guests a ball and asking them to play. This week is Blacktailmon Uber's 4th appearance, and the most forward-facing one yet. It literally knocks on the hotel door and delivers 3 new dim cards, one which contains a new message from Hero's dad. But it didn't really say too much. Was it just a 3D album to brag to his son, or was it something more? Kirishiro asks if that cat, Blacktailmon Uber, is the thing connecting Hiro to his dad through the digital world, but nobody really knows for sure. The new dims weirdly don't play a huge role in the finale of this episode, which did surprise me. But back to this scene, Angoramon comments on how much we still don't know about the digital world, and then Hito theorizes that perhaps we'll learn more the next time we see Gulis Gamamon. And the others, particularly Kirishiro, start to freak out just at the mention of the name. They're treating saying Gulis like saying Voldemort. It's the name that can't be spoken within the group. Koemon is the so-called spirit haunting the hotel, and I was overjoyed that this is the character they went with this week. Koemon is an absolute favorite of mine, and it seems he's just looking for the old grandmother who used to keep him company, who one day disappeared from the hotel. Much like Gamamon, Koemon doesn't really get what happened to Granny the same way Gamamon didn't get where Bokomon went. Koemon is blown away by the light show Battle Gamamon and Jellymon are able to put on, and it's very cute seeing everyone in such high spirits, especially after the dark events of episode 13. Koemon manages to materialize, and that's without a human or a vital bracelet present, but it's kind of based on the prospect, the idea of seeing Granny again. So in some ways, it's like Granny is his human partner. And it turns out she actually is alive. A nice little fake out that I'm happy with. And he goes on a journey to go find her. So, this was not the epic part 2 follow-up to the intensity of episode 13, but it was calming and pure in a way that I think was necessary. With the 15th episode of Digimon Ghost Game marking the arrival of Angoramon's champion evolution, Simba Angoramon, we now have all 3 protagonists this season with champion level Digimon. It's funny to think that by episode 15 of Digimon Adventure 2020, we were already halfway through the ultimate level episodes, but Ghost Game had to account for Gamamon's multi-directional evolutions, him having 3 forms and a dark form, but yes, we now have crossed the getting the champion section of the newest show, and the episode that gave us our final champion was a pretty great one. It was, of course, centered on Rudy and Angoramon, but what I liked most about it was that we got to spend more meaningful time with Rudy's crew, Mika and Aoi. If you recall, these 3 girls technically were introduced to us in episode 1 of Ghost Game before even Hito and Kiyoshiro. We always knew Rudy's crew had their own thing going on before she became a Digimon tamer, and it was cool seeing their dynamic this week before the big showdown and evolution. We get a glimpse of what exactly is going on, and it's that Digimon who haven't materialized, so they're in that kind of hollow, transparent form. They are scaring the pants off of humans, and the joy they get from horrifying humans is actually helping fast track their materialization, making them no longer see-through and sort of real, for lack of a better term. We're starting to see evidence that what many Digimon are after is materialization, and that they can manipulate humans to get it. And I'm really curious how much of this is real, serious foreshadowing for like the future, like a major plot, versus how much of this was just him spouting villain of the week monologuing. For the fight, we get a beautiful snow setting thanks to Rudy's new DIM card, resulting in a new AR field. She makes this decision where her friends might have to see that she's partnered with a Digimon, and she's really worried that they're going to be terrified of Angoramon and potentially of her. Nevertheless, she goes forward with the AR field since it's for their safety, and in it we quickly see Angoramon achieve a new evolution. We get Simba Angoramon. It makes short work of some of the lackeys, but when it's time for Felismon, it's not just a one-hit you're done situation. We get a Dragon Ball Z beam struggle, and we were losing that beam struggle until Battle Gamamon and Tesla Jellymon showed up to help push back. It was a nice bookend kind of moment for the end of the arc, the getting our champions arc. Seeing all 3 kids have their champion level Digimon fighting side by side, I'm starting to get alarmed about how many malicious Digimon are still out there. There could be a serious Sinister Six style formation of baddies coming very soon with how many are still out there and how many of them are eager to manifest and materialize. When the dust settles, Rudy sees her friends again. She's expecting them to think she's like a monster, but we learn they didn't really see what happened other than that they understand she distracted the monsters so that they could get away. Later, to themselves, Mika and Aoi say, looks like Ruli has some secrets, but let's not ask her anything until she's ready to talk to us. These are just some of the greatest friends out there. Rudy really knows how to pick them. I've got to be honest, I wasn't really feeling the 17th episode of Digimon Ghost Game until the final few minutes where we witnessed something extremely interesting, a canon partner swap where Ruli, who is officially partnered with Angoramon, and Jellymon, who is officially partnered with Kiyoshiro, those two teamed up with Ruli issuing commands to Tesla Jellymon to save the others and win the day. This is kind of massive, right? I mean, there aren't many instances of this happening that I can think of, and it would certainly seem to suggest that it's now open season for the other kids doing these partner swaps or partner trades in future episodes. Hawkmon, one of the main partners from Digimon Adventure 02, is back for a sort of guest appearance in the 18th episode of the newest season. We actually get 2 twin Hawkmon in this episode, partnered with a brand new child and a new evolution path for Hawkmon that probably wasn't who most of us were expecting. 2 Hawkmon's willingness and drive to save their human partner actually activates an evolution into Orcamon. Overall, though, another episode with a surprising amount of world building, but still not doing much to directly advance the plot of Digimon Ghost Game. To recap, we learned that kids even younger than Hito and the gang are partnering with Digimon out in the real world, which could be huge, but it could also amount to nothing. It all depends on what the writers want to do. We also learned that even without a vital bracelet, Digimon who are partnered with humans can not just materialize like Monmon did, but they can even digivolve, as in Hawkmon turning into Orcamon. The big question now is, other than the sort of AR field functionality, what exactly is the purpose of the vital bracelets then, if they aren't the real key to helping Gamamon, Jellymon, and Angoramon digivolve? Episode 19 was not just one of the creepiest episodes in the 23 years of Digimon anime entries, but it was absolutely stuffed with lore implications and things for fans to chew on as we piece together the mysteries of this new horror-themed season. 1 week later, it's looking like the Digivice bracelet has a new meaning and use, being the key to bridging space and time. Kinda cool. Again, we'll see where they go with this, if anywhere at all. After we unite, Digivolve, and intimidate Pixelmon, it says something extremely important. It claims that it's grown tired of our heroes and it's going to travel back in time to ensure they never existed. Pixelmon says he'll start with Gamamon, then travels into the past through a portal. A few seconds later, reappears more beat up than ever, gasping for breath, and asks, "What exactly are you?" I'm dying to know what Gamamon was in the past. Was it Ghoulless Gamamon that Pixelmon found in Gamamon's past? Something else? We've been asking for a while if Gamamon is truly a newborn Digimon or some kind of creature who existed for a while before meeting Hito, but it doesn't stop there. He then tries to go into the future to understand what exactly Gamamon is, and when he comes back half a second later, Pixelmon is absolutely singing the praises of Gamamon, saying, "You were amazing," and Pixelmon just wants to be Gamamon's best friend. So the obvious question is, what did Pixelmon see in the future? So takeaways from episode 19. Time travel now as a possibility, as we've learned that the bond between Digimon and their human can transcend time and space, straight up opening portals to send one to the other. We have a violent past for Gamamon, and finally, we know that Gamamon's future is bright. Whatever it was, it made Pixelmon want to be by Gamamon's side. Ghost Game Episode 20 made serious efforts to advance the plot of the new series by featuring 2 Digimon hunting the mysterious Blacktailmon, who seems to be vital to the plot of this new season. Hito tries to insist that he doesn't know where Blacktailmon is, and conveniently, Blacktailmon shows up to open a portal into the digital world for them. Definitely convenient and kind of odd. It almost makes Hito seem like a liar, even though he wasn't. But this brings me to an element of the episode I was a little disappointed in. When I heard the premise that 2 Digimon were coming to Hito because they were hunting Blacktailmon, I had hoped we'd learn more about Blacktailmon, potentially even Black Agumon, but it turns out they only want to find Blacktailmon because they know it's someone who can send them home. They don't know each other, they aren't part of a secret organization of Dark Digimon. Right at the end, Hito remembers what Bokomon said about our team potentially being the bridge between the human and the digital world. Hito's last words of the episode are that we really need for someone to be a bridge. It seems like Blacktailmon is fulfilling that bridge role for the Digimon, but there may need to be a human to take on that role. Someone who understands both Digimon and humans, kind of like what Tai wanted to be in the Digimon 02 epilogue, honestly. Based on the way other Digimon like Hawkmon and Clockmon, and now the 2 enemies from this week, come to Hito for help, it seems like the show is building up to Hito taking on this role as the bridge between Digimon and humans. Episode 21 brought back a villain from 02 that I had been hoping to see. I'm talking, of course, about Arukenimon, I think one of the all-time great villains from the early 2000s run of Digimon shows, both in design and screen presence. She is fully reimagined here in episode 21 of the new series. Not only that, Arukenimon had an amazing showing in this episode, super imposing, and in fact one of the only enemies to completely and utterly beat our protagonists at the end, totally winning until we got the surprise appearance of a Dark Digimon. Well, 2 Dark Digimon actually. She uses her webs to catch and link humans and likens it to a neural network, something I thought was quite cool, and she also claims that the best way to understand a subject is to devour its brains. Arukenimon is most fascinated in Gamamon for his ability to swap between evolutions in a way that she hadn't quite seen before, and so he's first on her agenda. The team is utterly helpless to stop this as her jaw opens up and she inches towards Gamamon, but at the last possible second, Gamamon activates that Dark Digivolution from episode 13, goes into the Ghoulless Gamamon form for a second time, and essentially destroys Arukenimon One Punch Man style. Notably, Ghoulless is far more calm and collected this time, still massively intimidating, but it does not feel like we are in the same immediate danger, and it does not feel like Ghoulless wants to harm our team like he did the first time in episode 13. He says something really interesting. When Hiro inches towards him, Ghoulless says, "Stay back, it's not time yet, see ya," and then reverts into Gamamon, as if that wasn't enough. In a bit of a repeat of the Black Agumon reveal, where that Digimon was watching over the first Ghoulless Gamamon appearance, we pan up to see Black Gargamon, as in a dark version of Terriermon's champion form, Gargamon. This is something I cannot really process, but the way the Black Agumon and the Black Gargamon are just watching over Ghoulless Gamamon from the shadows, it screams secret organization to me. I don't know. After a month-long hiatus, Digimon Ghost Game returned with episode 22 and brought with it an iconic Skull Greymon appearance, sort of having Skull Greymon as the Digimon stand-in for Freddy Krueger, with humans being trapped in a dream world where this nightmare of a Digimon haunted them and would cause real bodily harm to their real-world bodies. This week was another great example of Digimon Ghost Game taking ideas from classic horror and thriller films and asking what that would look like in the Digimon universe. It was also an episode where Hiro and Gamamon took a back seat, allowing us to focus on the other two pairs of characters, Kiyoshiro and Jellymon, plus Riley and Angoramon. And it really reminded us that as much as we love Gamamon, this isn't the Gamamon show. It feels like I just watched the Digimon Ghost Game movie or something when you look at episode 23's intense scenario, high stakes, rewarding side character cameos, and growth for all of its characters, on top of the amazing visuals. Ghost Game took the premise of the main partner Digimon becoming infected/possessed, and although it didn't turn this into a multi-episode arc, it delivered an incredibly satisfying story with a beginning, middle, and end, all in 22 minutes that pushed the characters of Ghost Game to their very limit. The first Digimon partner, the main partner to go, is Jellymon, who we see crawling around the ceiling of Kiyoshiro's dorm like a little nightmare demon spawn. Gamamon and Angoramon are next to be converted after receiving some sort of signal, some red powdery looking thing, they call it scales, that are coming out of electronics. And we come to realize that the blood red moon of the episode isn't just for aesthetics. The red scale data has been floating towards the moon, and essentially when the moon turns full red, the scales will rain down and infect every Digimon in the human world. Someone or something is using satellite dishes to amplify the red scale signal and reach more Digimon. Kiyoshiro steps up in that boy genius role and is tasked with destroying an inactive but still floating in space satellite that the mystery villain may be planning to use in order to spread the red scale signal across the whole world. Huge Dragon Ball Z moment here, and it destroys the satellite just like we wanted. There's a girl who looks teenage, maybe slightly older than our team, working in front of a series of monitors in what appears to be a room in a house, and it's her that has Morphmon captured in her computer. The girl says, quote, "What is this intelligent life form? Is it an AI? Or maybe either way it's a big discovery. Nobody will call me an amateur researcher now." The whole thing about what is this intelligent life form, it gave me some big Ken Ichijoji vibes, with her seeming to not understand the seriousness of the situation. I mean, she does understand it's a huge discovery and an intelligent life form of some kind, but she doesn't seem to be valuing the life of the little creature she's got captured on her computer. I don't know what I was expecting from the villain of this week, but it certainly wasn't Morphmon, and then it definitely wasn't Morphmon's human captor. Clockmon bursts into the room and steals the monitor that contained Morphmon and bails. It's kind of the end of the scene of this character for now. I really like how this reveal played out. I'm just hoping and praying that this mysterious girl comes back. Like, please don't let this be a one and done character. Please let her return in some meaningful capacity. Maybe she's the human that Dracomon works with, or she's the one to bring all the villainous Digimon who don't want to be reformed together or something. Digimon Ghost Game episode 24 showed us exactly what happens when a Digimon becomes obsessed with a human and tries to force a partnership without the human knowing or agreeing to enter the partnership. Agitarmon becomes the Digimon partner that Yuto, a new character, did not know he had and did not ask for. So this episode dives into the premise, what would happen if you had an obsessive, anonymous guardian angel? But this episode, it doesn't end with Yuto and his Digimon stalker, shaking hands and becoming the newest members of the Ghost Game gang. In the last few minutes, the episode gets super weird though. Realizing he's lost and his plans to turn Yuto into a Digimon aren't going to work out the way he hoped, Agitarmon decides he will become like Yuto, a human, and parts of his armor start stripping away. He resembles kind of like this gooey human, losing more of his Digimon features and turning into kind of a human made out of dirt and leaves. But when Yuto tries to embrace and console him, because Agitarmon is now like sobbing real tears during this devolution, by the way, Agitarmon bursts into this cloud of pixels, and that is really where his story ends. He tried to stop being a Digimon in order to become more like Yuto, and I guess that is what caused him to almost self-destruct. Maybe self-delete is the more accurate word. The episode then ends with Yuto back to work, surely mourning Agitarmon in some capacity, or at least still thinking about what happened, and the kids decide they'll keep an eye on Yuto from afar just to be safe. Just showing the unhealthy relationship mentality where Agitarmon thinks being close with someone means that you have to be the exact same. First trying to make Yuto into himself, and then when that didn't work, trying to make himself into Yuto. It's sad and dark for Digimon, and a cool new type of story for Digimon. Say what you will about the Monster of the Week formula of Ghost Game, I know I definitely want the plot to kick into high gear. This is a franchise that is over 20 years old, and almost every week they're coming up with new variations on the Digimon story format that we've been enjoying for 2 decades. Best episode of Digimon Ghost Game? No, not for me, but one of the more thought-provoking ones. Ghost Game absolutely brought the heat and the horror in its 25th episode. The obvious answer is the Ghost Game debut of Vamdemon, who most English language fans who grew up on Digimon would know as Myotismon, but then beyond that, the episode had two other massive moments for the series. Dracomon returned after being missing in action since episode 3, and appears to have been completely destroyed after all the hype of what his return could mean for the series. And before we could even process that, Gamamon digivolved into Kano Weissmon. The premise of this episode is that a trendy, high-end mega company known for desserts, perfumes, luxury accessories, and more is inviting social media influencers, specifically women influencers, to a product sampling session at the company's head office. When these women arrive, they're being attacked by vampires, but they don't just suck their blood and move on. In this world, when the vampires bite, they control their victims, so it's almost like a hybrid between vampires and zombies. Really, being the only girl member of the team and also the team member with a massive social media platform, she's invited to one of the product sampling sessions. When she arrives for the sampling, things go south pretty soon because she recognizes the voice of one of the servers. It's Dracomon from episode 3. This almost had me thinking that there was some fake out and the handsome man wasn't Myotismon in disguise but actually was a human, and that Dracomon would somehow digivolve into Myotismon in this week's episode with the human's help. But to my surprise, Dracomon was actually offed quite suddenly. He wanted revenge on Ruli, which wasn't part of the plan. Myotismon wanted her alive, considering she's special and that she can partner with a Digimon. He swarmed Dracomon with all these bats until Dracomon kind of popped. And if that is the end of Dracomon, which it seems like it is, that will have been quite odd since Dracomon's farewell words to the audience in episode 3 were all about how he could find a human to help him materialize and help him grow stronger. But now Dracomon's gone, so I guess that's not a thing. We learn a bit more about what Myotismon wants, namely that he has been increasing vampire numbers to become the ruler of all humans, believing vampires to be superior. He thinks that humans who can partner with Digimon would be great soldiers to have on his side, basically, and so he wants to test Ruli and her friends, who he realizes are probably camped outside waiting in case something goes wrong. Before Gulis can take control, Hito says he wants to face this challenge head on together, and it's the commitment that is apparently what alters the transformation Gamon's going through, from going dark and turning into Gulis Gamamon to turning very light into the very glorious Kano Weissmon. He takes on Myotismon and wins, though it's not mega clear if Myotismon is fully destroyed. Very interesting setup there, but I don't feel like theorizing in light of how Dracomon went out after all of our theorizing about what was coming for that character. I had very little issue with this episode other than seeing Dracomon seemingly destroyed after being teed up for something greater, and I don't think that was just us in our imaginations or me fan theorizing out of control. The show constantly cut to Dracomon in almost every episode when the narrator was explaining the rules of hologram ghosts and Digimon and whatnot, so that was a weird one. 26 introduced us to Angoramon's closest ally in the life prior to meeting Ruli. If Ruli is Angoramon's partner during his time in the human world, then Digitamamon was the closest thing Angoramon had to a partner back in the digital world. This episode is really about the clash of Angoramon's old and new ways of life, with Ruli meeting Digitamamon and Angoramon having to decide where his allegiance lies. The first thing that feels off about this reunion is the fact that apparently Digitamamon has been in the human world for a solid 6 months without reaching out. He wants to meet Ruli, Hito, and Kyoshiro and arranges a meetup at this abandoned mansion that he stays in. Ruli is invited upstairs to see a doll collection, I suppose, and starts to notice all of this sand or dust throughout the house. Digitamamon goes up with Ruli and, while isolated, tries to eat her. While the action on display is strong, it's really the dialogue here that makes the back half of this episode stand out. Digitamamon truly sees no problem with consuming humans, especially drawing the comparison between humans eating animals, really looking at the food chain and kind of implying Digimon should be higher up in the food chain, consuming humans for sustenance, and he claims there's nothing wrong with that. It's no surprise that Angoramon is against this, considering his partner and friends are humans, and he does what he needs to do in order to stop Digitamamon. While fading away, Digitamamon delivers a haunting analysis, telling Angoramon that he's the one who's changed. Digitamamon asks Angoramon if he is a Digimon or is he a human. I love leaving the episode on this note. We have seen the show talk over and over about the bridge between the human and digital worlds being necessary, and we've seen characters like Myotismon last week talking about his superiority over the human race. Angoramon is not the one to deliver that little outro poem. Instead, Ruli steps in, saying 1 or 2 lines about how the house still stands to this day, as if nothing had ever happened here. I love the idea that the in-universe Angoramon was too devastated by the events of this episode, by the betrayal and the loss of his old best friend, that he was like, no, sorry guys, I can't do the poem this week. Ruli, can you cover me? I gotta go. Ghost Game episode 27 brought back Black Gatomon, the series' Amazon delivery driver who seems to carry packages and Digimon back and forth between the human and digital worlds. Black Tailmon was the first big mystery of the series and has been absent for a number of weeks, so it was a great reminder to have this character appear, and not only appear but also act as a bridge between Hito and his father by delivering a special letter. Black Gatomon shows up with a sleigh, kind of like Santa Claus, and just kind of takes Splashmon away back to the digital world. Before Black Tailmon goes though, Hito asks if he can do a favor, if he can give a letter to his dad. Here's the full exchange. Quote, "Hold on, could you give this to my dad?" The letter says to Hokuto Amanokawa, "Really? What is that?" Hito, "I wrote a letter just in case." Black Tailmon takes it and abruptly leaves. Unfortunately, we don't get to read what the letter said, and we didn't even see Hito writing it earlier in the episode, so while I'm glad this scene exists in the episode, there wasn't much here. And it was kind of odd how Black Tailmon was in and out. It's one thing to sit here and say, I want the story to really get moving, and while I do want that, I'm also pretty forgiving when the episodic stuff is unique and thought-provoking, like last week with Digitamamon turning on us, or the really dark one a few weeks ago with Agitarmon wanting to be in like a relationship with a human basically. But this episode gave me nothing meaningful to really chew on, nothing to feel clever about or to applaud the writers for. Another disappointing element of this week is that last week's episode left Angoromon in a very dark place after he was forced to fight and eventually destroy one of his oldest friends after being betrayed. He was so devastated by that episode that really had to deliver the outro poem at the end of the week. Angoromon was basically back to normal here, and that's a shame. We kind of want to see the emotion carry over from week to week. It kind of feels like the writers on this episode themselves knew how inconsequential this episode was, and then threw in that Black Tailmon thing just at the end to kind of appease people like me, so that we can now say, well, technically something happened in this one. Episode 28 shows us an evolution failing for the first time in the series, but what does that mean? What are the consequences? Were Hiro and Gamamon trying to hit Mega just there? It all had to do with overpowering the Vital Bracelet, pouring too much energy into the battle, like pumping up a ball or a tire too much to the point that it pops. That's kind of what happened when Hiro and Gamamon tried to give Kano Weissmon even more power, but pushed a little too hard. We start with Kota Nomura, one of the boys' dorm mates, being locked in his room for 2 days straight. When we go to check in on him, we realize his face has been stolen and replaced by a creepy mask. Shurumon doesn't just like absorb their power when he takes their face. Here he literally wears the face, so it's like this hulking Digimon body with a teenage human's face. Pretty unsettling. Before the face stealer can steal more faces though, Hiro traps him in the AR field so that he can't touch any humans except for Hiro, that is. So now Hiro is the #1 target basically, being the only human in the AR field. Kaos evolves to Kano Weissmon, and it seems like all is going well, but Hiro needs to pour energy into a Vital Bracelet to boost Kano, and something happens where the blue backdrop of the VB turns red, and then Kano's evolution shatters like glass, and he comes back out as Kaos Gamamon. Now, I'll be honest with you, I thought something worse was going to happen when the backdrop went red, but this was still interesting. Digimon Ghost Game episode 29 delivered on what we were all hoping to see based on last week's 29 teaser. I'm happy to report that Tedismon, Jellymon's ultimate, debuted in this very solid Kyoshiro-based episode. I think it would have been a noteworthy entry into Ghost Game even without the evolution, in my opinion, because of the fact that Kyoshiro had to really step up and not allow himself to be the cowardly, pitiful member of the group this week after encountering and coming to protect a lost little girl, Yuna-chan. This mission to return her to her mother forced him to be the adult, since the devilish Jellymon definitely wasn't going to be the adult. Allowing Kyoshiro to be more than a crybaby this week kinda ruled. He's used to having Hito or Ruri around who can play the role of the brave one so that he can allow himself to be scared and vocal about it. Here, he's partnered with a little child, so he kind of has to be the brave one. It is Kyoshiro's willingness to endure the poison that allows Tesla Jellymon to evolve into Ultimate here. As for Tedismon, I really love the design here. Tedismon is somehow like a mix between Jellymon, Anguilmon, and Lilymon. She has the cute charm and kind of flower petal skirt of Lilymon, but is presented with a certain divinity that feels like Anguilmon and how she is this heavenly being. She supplies an antidote to Kyoshiro and to everyone else in the area. Bystanders even snap photos of her and refer to her as a goddess. It's interesting, and I hope the photos of Tedismon result in more people beginning to ask questions about Digimon in this world, but sadly, based on Ghost Game's track record, I'm worried that literally everyone will forget this happened next week by episode 30. Digimon Ghost Game saw a new character, a girl from Ruli's social circle, partnering up with not one but two Digimon. This newcomer, Kaiono, teams up with an ex-Tyrannomon and Warumanzaimon and starts wreaking havoc, attacking all of the people in Kaiono's life who were trying to help her. It was a really unsettling episode, seeing a teenager who has hit a very dark place just rejecting help from others over and over again, viewing their good intentions as burdens and attacks on her. Digimon Ghost Game episode 31 left me disappointed and confused and a little frustrated. What really disappointed me this week was the bizarre inclusion of Black Tailmon returning to deliver a message from Hiro's dad. It was one of the first times Digimon Ghost Game has paid off / provided an answer to one of its many mystery box setups, and it was a deeply underwhelming payoff, as the dad's first message to his son was a weird, unhelpful joke that suggests the show might not be as interested in answering difficult questions as it is in asking them. Zubamon was once scarred in battle against Musamon and was only helping Angoromon and the team in order to get a win against Musamon, not out of a moral obligation or to stop a renegade Digimon who's been terrorizing humans and Digimon alike, but I digress. Black Tailmon appears suddenly, which should have been cool and exciting, but wasn't quite either of those things. The Digimon hands Hiro a letter, which had me kind of jump out of my chair, correct my posture, sit up straight, focus on the dialogue. Hiro tells Judy that it appears Black Tailmon has provided a letter from Hiro's dad, presumably a response to what Hiro wrote 5 episodes ago. At least according to the official Crunchyroll English subtitles, here is how that exchange goes. Really, what did you ask him? Hiro: I asked him what to do with Digimon who were too hard to handle. Hiro's dad: sorry son, I don't know. Good luck. This response to Hiro's letter is deeply frustrating for me. If this is the kind of payoff we can expect, then I am not looking forward to the other mysteries being paid off in Ghost Game. Are they all going to be trolls like this kind of was? I would certainly hope not, but this made it so that Hiro sending that letter was nothing more than a gag with a middling punchline we had to wait 4 weeks to hear. It also tells us Hiro's dad isn't in any real immediate danger or trouble if he was able to write a letter back to his son. So that's a little frustrating, because if he's not in any immediate danger, there's no real excuse for why he hasn't been able to do more and answer more of our questions about the nature of the digital world, why he's been away, what's up with Gamamon, why Digimon are jumping into the human world. Also frustrating is that we were kind of hoping to see Hiro and the team struggle with what to do with the enemy Digimon who aren't willing to compromise or who are not terrorizing humanity due to a misunderstanding but are truly evil to the core. You know, think Arukenimon, even think Musamon this week. It seemed like that was a hard lesson Hiro was going to have to learn and take seriously, and the show was kind of going in that direction. The fact what to do with uncompromising Digimon was the first and only question Hiro thought to ask his dad shows us how much he's been thinking about this very existential question. And Hiro's dad not providing any insight or even fatherly advice is definitely, frustrating. I'm repeating myself, but that's how I feel after this episode. The 33rd episode of Ghost Game was one of the most shocking and darkest Digimon episodes ever, just kind of casually depicting the gruesome death of one of the main characters, having that Digidestin being caught in a deadly explosion, being hit by a car, knocking his skull against a curb, only to visit Purgatory where a horrifying Majora's Mask looking Digimon tried to pull him permanently into the afterlife. Tonally, this was a super surprising and dark one. Over and over I kept asking, are they really doing this? I had a great time with it, but I was asking myself, if they ever dub Ghost Game and release it in the West, they might have to skip this one, because the one where Kiyoshiro is murdered over and over again might be pushing it. Lemortmon, the ultimate evolution of Angoromon, has finally made its anime debut in the 35th episode of Ghost Game. This guy looks monstrous in all the best ways, truly creepy, and we very much got that berserker rage beast vibe that many suspected Lemortmon would have based on previous art. Once he evolved into Ultimate, it was no longer the poetic and philosophical Angoromon or the effortlessly cool Jinba Angoromon. Lemortmon was a bloodthirsty Hulk who almost took things too far, just pummeling his opponent before someone intervened. Our team, who's on vacation in the hometown of Ruli's grandmother, people are giving them weird looks, probably because of their hologram ghosts, their Digimon, but this isn't just rural, old school people being anti-technology. There have been weird occurrences recently in town, putting the townspeople on edge, people being attacked by a monster in the woods. We have our werewolf. Now it's just Jinba Angoromon up against Manticoremon, and he's beaten pretty bad until he shares a moment with Ruli. She says no matter what the crisis is, and then Jinba Angoromon finishes her sentence saying, we break through it. This is, of course, when we go to Ultimate, we have the animation that is really pretty and exciting. Lemortmon is awesome and absolutely brutal, almost goes too far, beating Manticoremon to a pulp when it's stopped by the angel Digimon Darkmon. It seems pretty soon after Darkmon intervenes, Lemortmon just kind of reverses to Angoromon, and we don't really wrestle with Lemortmon going berserk in that moment. It still may be a plot point of some kind later. Lemortmon seemed transfixed on protecting Ruli at any cost and was willing to take it to an extreme place. We even got a cut of Ruli's face going from excited to kind of concerned just before Darkmon intervened. When Lemortmon snapped out of it and reverted to Angoromon, I almost expected a what the hell was that kind of scene, either Ruli asking it or Angoromon himself asking what kind of came over him, or maybe thinking he blacked out or something, but they just hug like nothing's wrong. I'm hoping that when Lemortmon shows up again, he's not just suddenly tamed and under control, but that this berserker status is something we have to actually confront and conquer. The same can be said with Gulas Gamamon, who has not been seen since episode 21 in that battle with Arukenimon. I really hope we confront the dark side of these characters. So in episode 37, Hiro and Ruli visit Kiyoshiro at his new job site where they hear about the rumors of pets and livestock disappearing around the area. It turns out this area is haunted by zombies. Jinba Angormon deduces that Raremon must be using parts of its body to control the zombies. It then also suggests that the Digimon is eating the zombies itself to keep itself alive, which means it's eating humans and wildlife. The team believes Raremon has lost all thought and reason, that it's just a living corpse at this point, and basically the only real zombie here is Raremon. They have a surprising decision, at least for me watching the episode and thinking maybe nothing was going to happen this week. They decide the only thing they can do at this stage in the game is to end Raremon's life and return it to a Digitama Digi-Egg. Hiro flashes back to Bokomon's death, to Digitamamon's death, really dark moments for the show, before Betelgamamon ultimately is the one to tell Hiro that he believes ending Raremon's life is the right thing to do, which was a great bit of character growth for Gamamon, honestly. The team works together by unleashing all of the ultimate Digimon at once for the very first time. Tedismon clears the poison around Raremon. Lemortmon goes on this attacking blitz, causing Raremon to open its mouth, kind of screaming in pain, at which point Kano Weissmon fires an explosion directly into the monster's mouth. When all is said and done, we don't actually get visible confirmation that Raremon was reincarnated as a Digitama, which I kind of like. It isn't just this truly happy ending. There's some ambiguity. We have to hope that it worked and that somewhere out there a Raremon Digitama was spawned. Digimon Ghost Game episode 38 introduced Espimon. We were wondering, would Espimon's arrival mark the introduction of a fourth Digidestin type character in Ghost Game, a human partner for Espimon? As of episode 38, it seems that Espimon has no human partner, but there is some weirdness going on with Espimon and at least one human. Espimon claims to know Hiro Amanokawa, but when he meets him, he says, no, you're not Hiro, you two look nothing alike. I had a good time with these 22 minutes, and I'm super excited to see more Espimon now. Digimon Ghost Game episode 39 introduced the second of two kind of special 2022 Digimon. Espimon and Ryudamon were paired up together on a new set of Digivice Vital Bracelet DIM cards earlier this year that had the Ghost Game logo and packaging, so fans always knew these two mons were coming. We got Espimon last week and Ryudamon this week. We also got a few chunky lore updates and world building moments that fans who want the story to advance should appreciate. A small update on what Hiro's father has been doing in the digital world, and a new emphasis on the true power of the Digivice Vital Bracelet that our team have been wearing this whole time. Bakumon asks Angoramon, how do you guys turn back every time after you evolve? As he thinks that the main partner Digimon's ability to evolve and re-evolve may be the secret to curing Gyukimon. This is awesome and kind of a cool callback because a long time ago, I think it was episode 4 honestly, Angoramon explained that Digivolution does happen naturally in the digital world, but it kind of is age-based. Like Digimon grow into their next forms and then they just stay in those forms. They do not revert to prior forms. The team theorizes if we can get our Gyukimon to remember its original Ryudamon form, we can bring it back to its former self via the Digivice. So while battling, Betelgamamon is saying things like, remember who you are and whatnot. Quote, their hearts are synchronizing with the Digivice through Gamamon, is what Bakumon says, and then we see it work as Ryudamon returns to its former self thanks to Gamamon's help. The reason our Gyukimon knew to reach out to the team is actually because of Hiro's dad. Hokuto is apparently in the digital world telling Digimon that if they ever land in the human world and need help, to go seek out his son Hiro Amanokawa. It's a minor update on Hiro's dad's whereabouts and status, but it's kind of neat that similar to Clockmon sending lost Digimon in the human world towards Hiro and the gang, apparently Hokuto is telling Digimon in their world that if they ever find themselves lost in the human world, they can look for his son for help. Great to hear a little update on Hiro's dad this week. Great to get more information about the significance of the Digivice. Loved seeing Ryudamon. Episode 40, Spiral Beach. Espimon's arm is mysteriously twisted. Hiro and the gang go to the beach to investigate what could have caused this phenomenon, but they find that everything at the beach is twisted. The episode kicks off with the reintroduction of Espimon, who I was happy to see. His arm was twisted while he was visiting a beach, so he asks the team to help him figure out what's going on in hopes of reversing his new condition. I do love that even though Kyo is out this week, Jellymon is like, well, I don't care, I'm going anyway. Any other Digimon series, the partner would stay behind with their human, but not Jellymon. On the way to the beach town, we acknowledge that whole thing from episode 38 where Espimon insisted Hiro is not the real Hiro. It looks like this isn't a grand
plot tease, but instead just kind of another gag punchline moment. Hokuto, Hiro's father, apparently met Espimon in the digital world and told him that his son is the spitting image of Hokuto. Because Hiro doesn't literally look exactly like Hokuto, Espimon believes he is not the real Hiro. It's kind of funny seeing a Digimon not understanding an expression and taking things too literally, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't disappointed that the whole "you're not the real Hiro" mystery just amounted to a single joke about Espimon being unfamiliar with an expression. 41. Someone from the circus is luring children and turning them into cards. Ruli and Hiro sneak into the circus after Angoramon is kidnapped. It's up to Ruli, Hiro, and Gamamon to put a stop to this. I like that this episode just confirms Piedmon's presence immediately. He looks excellent in Ghost Game. I feel like they've been waiting forever to use this Digimon design. It's really the perfect character for a horror-themed season of Digimon. 2 Digimon kidnap Angoramon and bring him to the circus. These monsters who kidnap the kids are forcing the humans to put on a show for them at the circus, making a kid tightrope walk at a dangerously high level from the ground, and when he falls, he's turned into a card that Piedmon adds to his deck. Ruli demands they free the humans and Angoramon, but Piedmon laughs, saying, quote, "The weak must obey the rules set by the strong in any world." So he's willing to take on Ruli, though in a card game, not in like a fist fight. It's very Yu-Gi-Oh! If Ruli wins, then Piedmon will meet her demands, but if she loses, she'll be turned into a card like the other humans. Long story short, without getting into the rules of the game, Ruli does win, and Piedmon accepts his defeat without any funny business. Ruli tells Piedmon not to use humans for its games, and he repeats the line he said earlier that the strong set the rules, and since Ruli bested him, we will follow her command. Seeing Ghost Game's creepy 2022 take on one of the most terrifying Digimon villains from my childhood, from Adventure 1999, that was nice, but I didn't love the way Piedmon was handled. This is a Digimon we all knew was coming to Ghost Game eventually. He was kind of teased with that Pennywise in the sewer reference in the opening animation for Ghost Game week over week. Personally, I don't know, I was hoping Piedmon would be more of a serious, overarching villain. To see him appear in such a small, one-off role, only to be bested and then fully reformed, all in 22 minutes, and all because a human beat him at a card game, it wasn't the Piedmon I had in mind, that's for sure. There have been weeks where the team realizes certain Digimon can't be reformed, and I sort of thought Piedmon would be one of those villains, one of those bad to the core Digimon, and so I didn't really love that we had a jokey conversation with him at the end. It was like if Batman just one day was able to reason with the Joker after a short conversation. That would never happen. Exactly 21 episodes since Gulas Gamamon's last appearance, the cruel but sophisticated dark Digivolution form of Gamamon finally returned for its 3rd appearance in Digimon Ghost Game. And of course, it wouldn't be a Gulas Gamamon appearance without a dark form of some iconic Digimon from the Adventure and Tamers era watching ominously from the sidelines. We had already seen Black Agumon, then a Black Gargamon, and this week a Black Growlmon. So what was the context? How did it all happen, and how was the episode? It was one of the most violent episodes of the show, without a doubt, immediately kicking things off by showing us a human girl get impaled by a Digimon's katana, then lifted into the night sky. Ruli decides to investigate claims of an Oni demon kidnapping. When they arrive, Ruli and the gang find themselves as new targets for the so-called Oni, and not long into searching, the team splits up into boys and girls. Oboramon finds Hiro and Kyo first. Now, only 8 minutes into the episode, Hiro, our main character, is also impaled by the Oni's blade. He lets out this gruesome, painful scream, and he too is lifted into the sky by Oboramon. Ruli is stabbed next and thrown into the blue Obораmon's pocket dimension, because there's multiple Oboramons now. Between witnessing his human partner deformed and twisted, as well as receiving a brutal beatdown, Gamamon transforms for the 3rd time in the series into Gulas Gamamon, its dark Digivolution form. This time, it's also more violent than I remember. It's always been ruthless, but this was a straight-up massacre, and it would not have stopped killing the many Oboramon if Hiro didn't intervene to end things early. Hiro refuses to let Gulas Gamamon continue, though realistically, he couldn't have done much to stop him. Gulas laughs, though, and plays along, stopping and saying, quote, "You gonna order me around without even trying to sync up with me?" referring to the vital bracelet. And as Hiro steps up to him, Gulas says, quote, "You made it one step closer. See ya, bro." The Oboramon who survived say that's the powerful Digimon spoken about, the Jet Black champion. So there have been rumors of Gulas Gamamon, and I think it's kind of rad that Digimon are now passing around stories of Gulas like an urban legend, like a boogeyman who will come out and get them if they're bad. We see Black Growlmon for only a few seconds before credits. It wouldn't be a Gulas Gamamon appearance without a dark version of an iconic Digimon watching from the sidelines ominously. There isn't much to say about Black Growlmon, honestly. It's a repeat formula from Gulas' 1st and 2nd appearances. I'm a sucker and I eat this stuff up, but if there's anything I want to say, it's about the overall story. A lot of fans have accepted the Monster of the Week nature of the show, and I for the most part have accepted it too, but then the show will also do stuff like this with Black Growlmon, which is clearly teasing an overarching story. It's the 3rd Dark Digimon ominously watching over Gulas Gamamon's battles, so something is going on. Digimon is doing a frustrating thing where it won't tell an overarching story, at least not yet, but it also won't just be a Monster of the Week show because it keeps injecting little story reminders to insist it's not just a Monster of the Week show. Episode 43 just took the throne and became the episode to contain Ghost Game's most chilling body horror. This Eismon rips people's true eyes right off of their face, replaces them with red eyes, and then over time causes their body to grow new eyeballs all over their arms, necks, legs, etc. We got to meet a super fun and charismatic friend from Kiyoshiro's past, an American girl named Emma visiting the gang, only to watch her slowly become infected by Eismon's disgusting curse. Emma and Kiyo have a pretty complicated past. She's nosy to a fault and loves sharing her findings with the world on social media. He's convinced that if Emma finds out about the Digimon, she'll tell the whole world about Gamamon and the others. She's hearing and sensing Jellymon, but she mistakes the clues as being signs of Kiyo's secret girlfriend. In what I thought was quite a powerful moment for Ghost Game, the trio opens up to Emma and exposes the truth about their Digimon partners to her, just so that there are no secrets and they can get her the help she needs without having to dance around and hide their partners from her. It's pretty special seeing the kids be fully open with someone outside their core circle about Digimon and introducing their partners to another human. Eventually, Kane of Icemon's light surpasses dimensions, as they say, which was pretty intense, and blinds Eismon, causing it and other versions of itself to come out of hiding, only to be defeated as well. Eventually, Emma is cured and has a great scene on the rooftop with the Ghost Game trio and their Digimon, where she finally gets to meet Jellymon. The three of them have some great banter. Emma even tries to kiss Kiyoshiro, but Jellymon butts in to stop it, claiming Kiyoshiro belongs to her. It's super fun. It's like that Willis scene on the bridge in the Digimon movie. Emma is Willis here trying to kiss a Digidestined, and Jellymon is our Davis, freaking out and getting all jealous. The whole episode is kind of a cautionary tale about sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, about not getting too deep into people's business, and honestly, this episode would probably scare a lot of kids into behaving and tone down their nosiness. Between the nightmare-inducing body horror we got via Eismon and the very likable Emma, this is one of my new favorite episodes. I had a great time with Ghost Game this week. In episode 45, people start receiving newsletters with articles detailing events that haven't happened and are shocked and terrified to find out that they all come true. It seems a Digimon is behind this. One way or another, the episode ends with Anna being forced to skydive and the team accompanying her thinking that this is where the villain of the week will strike, this mysterious entity that's causing these news articles to come true. Odd setup aside, this skydiving scene is actually an extremely fun action sequence for Act 3, with Anna falling out of the plane, Hito and Gamamon jumping out after them and utilizing Kaos Gamamon to rip through the sky, save Anna, and battle the brand new Digimon enemy, Publimon, who is causing the issues of the week. Publimon technically dies at the end of the battle, crash landing onto the Earth's surface, then kind of pixelating, marking this one of only a small amount of times Hito has not been able to talk a Digimon down from being a villain and instead had to battle it to the bitter end. They didn't emphasize it much, but you could see the depression and sadness consume Hito at the end of the scene and during the remaining minutes of the episodes. It also ends with him asking what kind of place the digital world is. Is it this very kind of killer be killed world, or is it more peaceful? He has no idea. He's never been. Digimon Ghost Game's 47th episode brought armor evolution into Ghost Game with the anime debut of an old school armor form that was never seen in the anime but was known from the trading card game and video games. This is what would happen if Wormmon used the Digi-Egg of Courage, the one that turns Vmon into Flamedramon, but when used on Wormmon we get Shaydramon, who gave us one of the most disturbing episodes of Digimon yet. There's also episode 46 to talk about. That saw the introduction of an entirely new Digimon, Odiamon. Kotaro is acting strange. He seems afraid of water, which makes him run away, screaming. Even on the following day, the sight of water still makes Kotaro tremble with fear. This worries Hito, so with the help of his friends, he decides to investigate. Like the other week, we have more of Hito's dad, Hokuto, involved in accidentally inspiring the Digimon villain of the week. Once she's been defeated, Hito asks Odiamon why she even wanted to cook humans, since clearly there aren't any in the digital world, so she has no history of this behavior. This is like a new thing. She says she met a human in the digital world who she served one of her specialties to. He made the joke that the smell of her food was interesting and that people smell just like this when they don't take a bath for a long time. She says to us, the audience, and to Hito, once I heard the delicious story, how could I not try eating a human when I got here? It's a weird stretch of a story. I guess she equated the taste of her food with the smell, and since humans can smell like that when they don't shower, she thought that they would taste just like her food. At the end, Oriamon gets her own cooking show, which really watched on her computer, and certainly interesting. It's certainly something, I guess viewers are just assuming she's like a strange woman in a Halloween costume or something like that. Weird, underwhelming ending for me. Everything from Hokuto's involvement to this cooking show on Twitch or whatever that was. I left this episode with similar feelings and thoughts to when I left episode 44, the one with Antilamon, where Hito's dad told them that their skills to create anything would be adored by humans. It was an episode that felt incredibly inconsequential, and while not every episode needs to change the game for Ghost Game, this one felt a little too much like the Agitarmon episode with Yuto back in episode 24, even similar to episode 26, the twist where Digitamamon had been eating humans, and it even felt a bit like episode 21, the Arukenimon episode, with kind of a mysterious and seductive older woman as the mysterious villain. It shared DNA with all of those episodes, but the problem is I think each one of those was a superior episode on its own compared to this one. A voice whispers into the ear of Shadramon, who is afraid of returning to Digitama form and forgetting everything. It says, "I'll leave those memories for you." Soon after, Kiyoshiro realizes that something is wrong with his friend Tamotsu. This new human character Tamotsu is cool, and exploring Kiyoshiro's larger friend group again, like when we saw Emma a few weeks ago, is pretty fun. We want Mummymon to examine Tamo because he's been acting strange, but there's a voice in his head telling him not to see the doctor. Mummymon feels that Shadramon is trying to defy the very laws of Digimon nature, staying alive through a human. It is simply a fact that when Digimon die, they turn back into Digitama with no memories of their past life, and here is Shadramon refusing to let the cycle of rebirth happen to it, latching onto a human in order to stay alive. At a certain point in the episode, the Shadramon parts that have up until this point been these hologram forms poking out of Tamatsu, they eventually become fully realized non-holograms, and it's literally as if there are body parts of a Digimon bursting out of this human teenager's body. It's absolutely disgusting. Tamatsu is unconscious, I guess because of the pain or just the sheer horror, and it's a nightmare situation for both the human and the Digimon, who didn't want this either. All while this is happening, something weird is going on with Hiro's Digivice Vital Bracelet, kind of flashing, blinking twice, although I don't think this actually went anywhere in the finale of the episode. We then get another Black Tailmon sighting, which frankly is meaningless at this point until the show decides to tell us more about what is going on with Black Tailmon or what its intentions are. But Hiro gives Black Tailmon a new letter for his dad. This time at least he tells us that it's just a collection of his thoughts on the last few encounters with Digimon to tell his dad how he's been feeling. I'm glad he told us, the audience, that at least. Episode 48, The White Bride. Ruli is asked to be a model for a wedding pamphlet and puts on a wedding dress. However, she's suddenly taken. It seems that brides in wedding dresses have been disappearing from local wedding halls. I'm happy to see our boy Ryudomon is both in this episode and is specifically hanging out with Kiyoshiro and Jellymon, just as Espimon is really spending time with Hito and Gamamon. I kind of feel bad now for Airdramon, where that partnership with Ruli and Angoramon is very transactional, like get me to where I need to go. Out of nowhere, we get something that Ghost Game almost never does, which is a flashback and direct reference to a past episode, specifically Ryudomon being saved by Gamamon back in episode 39, and Ryudomon's desire to save Gamamon in this week's episode helps him digivolve into Ginryumon right in the middle of Kyo's room. This is awesome and a pleasant surprise, though noteworthy that it didn't seem to have anything to do with the Digivice with Kiyoshiro. This was Ryudomon evolving based on his bond with another Digimon, not a human, with Gamamon specifically. Episode 49, The Crimson Harvest Festival. It's Halloween season, girls wearing witch costumes are being turned into real witches one by one, and the number of witches continues to grow. It seems a Digimon with some ulterior motive is behind all this. I'm of two minds with this being the second Halloween episode of the series. On one hand, it's kind of cool that a full calendar year has passed in real life and we're still getting a fun Digimon show weekly, but that also means a full calendar year has passed in the world of Digimon Ghost Game. We've of course seen the signs of time passing with the outfits changing to match the winter, spring, and summer seasons, but now we know for certain it's officially been a year since Hiro first met Gamamon. So what do we have to show for it? A full calendar year. Hiro's dad has been missing for over a year. We've known about Gulis Gamamon for a little under a year and have barely acknowledged it. We've learned about Black Tailmon, no new humans in the gang, aka no 6th Ranger situation. We're no closer to the digital world. We've got new friends, sure, with Ryudomon and Espimon and Airdramon, plus a few evolutions for each of our Mons, but nothing else has changed. Like the status quo is the exact same as where it was last year in terms of the show's true calendar year. I know you're kind of tired of hearing it, and I'm tired of having having this debate where folks in the comments will say, well, what did you expect? It's an episodic show. They said it would be episodic. But it feels like I'm in a Groundhog Day time loop situation, being back for another Halloween in this universe with another misunderstood Digimon who was convinced of the error of their ways at the end of the 22 minutes. We get an army of witches in downtown Tokyo, mostly comprised of teenage girls who were previously in costumes but were transformed, and Witchmon is the army general. Kano Weissmon overpowers Witchmon, the clock strikes midnight, and all the humans are turned back to normal. Quote, Witchmon's spell was broken and everything returned to normal. Is tragically the most Digimon Ghost Game quote ever. Like, that's such a just underwhelming and nothing mattered. The one story crumb that is being talked about is Witchmon asking Gamamon. Air was saying that although the English subtitles differ, the actual Japanese used here for Dark Conqueror was the same used as when Oboromon in episode 42 referred to Gulas Gamamon as the Jet Black Champion. So there is some consistency there in terms of some Digimon knowing about a mythical Dark Conqueror / Jet Black Champion. Episode 50, Payback. Hazakura Academy's first year, Riku is a long way from home and is having trouble fitting in when a Digimon takes an interest in him. However, things go awry when he has trouble reciprocating the Digimon's act of kindness. Puchimon keeps calling itself Puchi, and I always think it's fun when Digimon have nicknames for themselves. The more little favors Puchimon does for Riku, it appears to be adding them to a little list of IOUs, like it's tracking everything that it's done nice to kind of one day get that reciprocated. Seemingly inspired by its apparent love of Riku, it eventually evolves into Maycrackmon of all Digimon and asks to be called May. The two of them sleeping together in bed is super weird considering it's no longer like sleeping with a tiny stuffed animal, but yeah, well, whatever this on screen is. It starts fighting the boys, demanding they bring Riku back. Eventually, they convince him that this is no way to make friends. Again, it's not unlike episode 49's thing with the Digimon not understanding how to make friends, and they insist that Riku just doesn't have the capability to repay May one for one in the way that it wants. So when they go back into the human world, May devises this plan to find Riku, confront him, says May will never deal with humans ever again. Riku, you should make friends with other humans. May really hates you. Then it walks away or jumps away. And I don't know, this was one of the most abrupt and underwhelming Ghost Game endings for me personally. After an episode that had a ton of potential, whereas 49 was very formulaic, I thought 50 was super weird in the best way possible, where I didn't know where we were going for the first 15 minutes, but those last 30 seconds, it happened so incredibly fast. The last minute or so just left such a weird impression for me. So if it wasn't clear, I was not the biggest fan of either of these episodes, 49 or 50. Hopefully things pick up in originality soon. In episode 51, we learned some of the things the upgraded Digivice can do, and in episode 52, we learned somewhat frustratingly some of the things the upgraded Digivice cannot do. In episode 51, a creepy headless ghost resembling the legendary knight Dullahan starts attacking students at Hazakura Academy. Apparently, the ghost is looking for its head. Kiyoshiro, for some reason, gets caught up in the middle of this chaos. At the start of the episode, Black Tailmon shows off and delivers a package. It contains a hologram message from Hokuto, who, for the first time, acknowledges Ruli and Kiyoshiro, since he's heard about them from Hiro's letters. The professor gives them each new DIM card chips, specifically for Ruli and Kiyoshiro though, that were co-developed with some Digimon friends. Noteworthy here that we didn't actually see Hiro getting one of these new chips. If he didn't get one, that makes what happens at the end of this episode even stranger because, as we'll see, all three kids benefit from this gift. After Jinba Agurumon and Battle Gamamon both take a beating and revert to Rookie, Gamamon proclaims I can still fight, at which point all three kids' Digivices start glowing and turn red into the Dual V. So what does the red Dual V mean? Well, Gamamon can now warp Digivolve or warp Shinka from Rookie to Ultimate. This episode doesn't necessarily confirm the new Dual V bracelet does away with the time limit that has plagued Kano Weissmon in the past, though the next episode will clearly tell us something about that time limit, so stay tuned. I'm fairly disappointed with how this Digivice upgrade story went down. This is probably the least interesting way the whole Dual V upgrade scenario could have happened. Having its debut just lead to warp Digivolution is pretty underwhelming, especially as it wasn't even warp Shinka to a new form like Mega or an alternative Ultimate, like perhaps a hidden Ghouls form. If anything, it's just shaving off time and fake tension we should have already been cutting out, since Ultimate has been available to Gamamon for about 25 episodes at this point. I was thinking about how Ghost Game does this thing where whenever it does cool things, it seems to do them in the least cool way possible. Dracmon teased a return since episode 3, and he's finally back in episode 25. Oh, he's dead now. No evolution. Just forget about that. He died. Espimon keeps telling us that Hiro isn't the real Hiro Amanokawa. It's just a weird joke, though, about Espimon not understanding the Japanese English language too well and thinking spitting image of Hiro's dad meant Hiro's dad and Hiro must look like clones. Okay, so that was just a weird gag. The Digivice has finally been upgraded. It happened for no particular reason. It just was gifted to them, and all it did was help them fast travel to Ultimate, basically. I don't know, sometimes it feels to me like an overall story planner had planted these beats in the show, created a roadmap, like at episode 13, Gulis will happen, at episode 25, Kano will happen, at 50, the kids will get the new Digivice upgrade, and then that story planner entrusted the rest of the team, was like, I can trust you guys to tell a progressing story that connects these dots for me, right? So again, this episode really was a vessel to get our kids the new Digivices in time for the real world release of the new Vital Bracelet devices that are releasing in Japan on November 26th. I don't even mean that in a hyper cynical way. Listen, Digimon and Power Rangers and shows like this have always been glorified advertisements for toys and merchandise for literal decades, so I totally get it. I just wish the 22-minute advertisement we just watched was packaged in a way that had more story impact. As for episode 52, Hiro and his friends come to a lake where it is rumored that Kappa hunt and drag humans underwater. Against Hiro's advice, Ruli goes near the lake at night, hears mysterious voices, and Gamamon swoops in for support. He does use Warp Shinka to fast travel to Kano Weissmon, the Ultimate, and in what blew my mind as just a mind-boggling decision, it turns out the Ultimate time limit is still a factor. It still has a role even with the new Vital Bracelet Dual V upgrade, meaning the new Digivice is truly just here to get us Warp Digivolution, no other perks as of now. It's always been an interesting plot beat that they have this Rage Berserker form for Angoramon, especially being such a gentle character. I wish they would do more with this Berserker Angoramon thing, but they don't seem interested in showing us what that would really look like. I know you don't like when I say it, but these two episodes are another set of misses for me. It's hard to even call them swings and misses because the swing implies they took a big chance or a big risk that didn't pay off, but admittedly it has been quite a few weeks since I really loved an episode of Digimon Ghost Game. Episode 53, The King of Knowledge. Kiyoshiro visits a shrine in Kyoto on a school trip. From then, someone starts to come pick Kiyoshiro up at night and challenges his knowledge. He then slowly starts forgetting things he should know. The winner steals one piece of knowledge from the loser, who will end up losing it forever. That's the condition of these challenges that Kiyoshiro keeps submitting to every night. Two human-looking spirits that followed Balmon and had been escorting Kiyoshiro to those nightly knowledge battles. They were not Digimon, but in fact spirits. It's the first time in a while we've wrestled with the concept. There was episode 38 where Daomon was a Digimon actually possessed by human spirits. That was a neat one. All in all, I had a feeling I knew what this episode was going to be. Our Kiyoshiro gets Warp Shinka episode, and it was more or less that. I will say I kind of liked it the most out of the Hito, Ruli, and Kyo's Warp Shinka unlock episodes. It was better than 51 and 52 for me in terms of the creative visuals when it came time for those knowledge battles. It could have also just been that all of the disappointment for what the new Digivice Dual V is and is not was already taken care of in episodes 51 and 52. Like, it broke my heart there. So by episode 53, I was no longer in denial or anger, or I had just hit acceptance. If you're someone who liked episode 50 of the latest Digimon series, the one where a human kid got partnered with an anime cat lady and even slept in the same bed with her, I think you're probably gonna like episode 55, the one where a different anime cat lady started training humans and making the best of them into her personal pets. As for the verdict, I thought this episode kind of ruled. You know, it didn't do any of the things that I was hoping to see in recent episodes, like story progression or new evolutions, but this Monster of the Week premise was very strong, a fantastic villain design, very brutal violence with the head banging that made me feel super uncomfortable, which is a good thing for a show that is meant to be a light horror take on Digimon and the monster taming genre. Even if Ghost Game isn't making moves story-wise, I'm happy to see it do the Monster of the Week stuff well when it feels fresh and different. Let's talk about the man of the hour, Seriousmon, and the episode that brought his debut. I'll go a bit out of order here and talk about Seriousmon first because I'm sure that's the main thing everyone wants to discuss right now. This Mega's debut was stunning though. The animation rocked. Hiro rides Kano Weissmon through the animation before Kano is covered in a golden light, and I like how Seriousmon has more of a superhero vibe than a royal knight. It's a nice change up since many predicted Gamamon's Mega would be a War Greymon lookalike or a Gallantmon, that kind of armored dragon slash dinosaur thing that we've seen. So superhero dinosaur is a great twist on that. I still find it utterly fascinating that we have Gamamon's pure white superheroic mega form and still have not technically conquered the Ghoulish Gamamon dark side of Gamma or even understand what it is, especially since Seriousmon's purple segments and the dark blue wings kind of borrow a bit from Ghoulish's color palette, as if Seriousmon was supposed to be a culmination of everything that came before, dark and light, but no. I guess the Ghoulish stuff truly is the story of Ghost Game and something we won't get addressed until the second last episode or something. The animation is phenomenal for the jump for like no reason. Don't get me wrong, I love it. It feels like a Ghost Game movie like Revenge of Diaboromon or Runaway Locomon. A voice in the sky says it will now cleanse impurities, and then more people begin acting like Kotaro and Mika. Kiyoshiro too is under this strange hypnosis, and conducting them is the villain of the week who I was not expecting at all. It's Kazuamon, the sort of dark variant of of Sakuyamon, Renamon's mega form. And she's in the Priestess Miko mode, which rules. Gamamon disagrees, flashing back to all the memories and little pleasures that they've shared together, and it's through these memories he connects even closer to Hito and unlocks the mega form. Even if Hito was rocking the old Digivice, I think him and Gamamon could still have achieved mega here, just because they were backed against the wall and because they like each other. But it's just funny to me that if you look back at every evolution stage so far, it's been the same. We are backed against the wall, Hito's in danger, then Gamamon remembers how much he values his friendship with Hito, and a new form is unlocked. So that could have been better. I would have liked to have seen some item be required for evolution, like the Vital Bracelet Dual V, or some major story milestone like conquering Ghoulish Gamamon being necessary for mega evolution. When it's all over, Kazuamon, who is in awe of their power, says to herself, could it be possible that their friendship created this power? If this was all calculated by the one who sent us to this world, ... Then she interrupts herself and says, as you were able to stop my ultimate move, I acknowledge you and call off the ritual. I kind of hate how the characters will say something important like, was this all calculated by the one who sent us to this world, and then just completely stop talking. Who sent them to this world? Are we talking about the secret final boss of Digimon Ghost Game here? Are we talking about Hito's goofy dad? Is Hito's goofy dad the secret final boss of Digimon Ghost Game after all? I appreciate the little crumbs of story, but it's also funny and a bit frustrating how every story drop we get is one character who knows more than they're willing to share, whispering something to themselves before quickly changing topics.
So Literally is back behind the piano this week. It's the first time we've seen her embrace the instrument in a meaningful way since her early days in the show. It was cool for this mega debut to have that component of her character back. There are bizarre block indents all around town and missing belongings like shoes and pants. Hito is turned into one of these blocks and is off the board for this week's episode. Same goes for Kiyoshiro. So from the 8-minute point onward, this episode is truly just Ruli and the Digimon. We get a good look at our villain of the week, Ancient Sphinxmon, and Mummymon warns us that to Ancient Sphinxmon, our lives are nothing but pebbles on the side of the road. As Ancient Sphinxmon threatens to override modern day human culture in favor of the ancient past, Lemortmon recalls everything it's grown to love about modern life, traveling to enjoy culture, amusement parks, flower viewings, weddings, and of course we're getting flashbacks to all these moments throughout the series. Ruli says she still hasn't found her perfect hobby, so there's still more to do and explore culturally. Then Lemortmon vows once again to defend her, and we get our mega transformation. Dita Bitmon is this cool looking military general with dual blades, very much a knight in shining armor for Ruli, a prince to save the day, this very gentlemanly warrior. So that is our Angormon debut episode. I would say this, I got everything I wanted from the form when it was in action, but I'm kinda haunted by the untapped potential of Lemortmon as a violent berserker protector. By that I mean we had seen hints of this Digimon coming close to crossing the line on multiple occasions, Lemortmon being an absolute monster that Ruli was even kind of scared of and taking things too far, like the enemy would already be down and it was still pummeling it. Lemortmon's transformation to Mega this week didn't really acknowledge or play into any of that. This Angormon situation is so much like the Ghoulish Gabumon situation where we all thought it would be necessary to conquer this inner demon and resolve the Ghoulish persona before Gabumon could unlock Ultimate, but then he just did it. So that's my only criticism, which isn't really a criticism of this episode, but rather the overall format / formula.
Episode 59, Kiyoshiro goes out of town for work where he meets Meru. They go see a Sentai action show together and encounter a hologram ghost. Kiyoshiro is somehow mistaken for Jiraiya and is forced to vanquish evil. I gotta be real with you all, this episode is a big miss for me. I know what you're thinking, how can you dismiss this episode? We got more Ghoulish Gamamon story and more Dark Digimon watching from above. But did we really get anything new? This was the fourth usage of the incredibly copied and pasted Ghoulish playbook. The enemy backs Gamamon and the others into a corner, Gamamon snaps, Ghoulish appears, and a Dark Digimon, or in this case 3 Dark Digimon from before, all watch on ominously. Technically this one was different in that Ghoulish spared the enemy of the week after Hito stood up to him, but beyond that this was the same formula applied again, and it was especially painful knowing it was almost exactly a year to the date that the first Ghoulish appearance happened in episode 13, and the 3 Dark Digimon showing, it tells me that these 3 are it. We're not getting more of their little squad, I guess, which is fine and sort of signals that this is the last Ghoulish appearance before something meaningful is going to happen. With Jellymon about to get her Mega in episode 60, I'm honestly hoping the show wraps up at episode 70 or less. Episode 60, Water Ghost. Jellymon, Kiyoshiro, and the gang visit a festival and encounter a strange rain that was not forecasted. Okay, this is more like it. A beautifully animated and brilliantly designed mega debut for Jellymon, plus a new Digimon for this week's villain, a sort of dark version of Marine Angemon called Kathilamon. The stakes were incredibly high during the battle, but I wasn't thrilled about the conversation that occurred after the dust settled. Honestly, out of all the mega evolutions so far, I think Jellymon's was the most satisfying in terms of character growth and just character beats. Gamamon and Hiro basically just didn't want to lose. Ruli went on about needing to find the perfect hobby, though we never really knew that she had been searching for a hobby this whole time. But here, Jellymon coming to realize she can't have fun pranking humans if there are no humans around to prank was in line with her character while not coming out of nowhere. She looks incredible in Ghost Game, and now I'm having a hard time choosing which of the 3 new megas is my favorite. Cathilamon says it's going back to playing. Hito asks if it knows anything about the one who sent them to this world, and it says nope, I don't. Both of these things I found underwhelming, mainly the former though, with Cathilamon being chill and getting off scot-free. I was hoping a threat that required a mega evolution would not be one of those Digimon that goes back to peacefully playing after the battle is won. Plus, having nothing to say about the one who sent us is a bit of a bummer. 60 was much better for me than 59. Now that we have all 3 megas, 3 dark Digimon in episode 59, a reminder of the fake Hito via the Espimon mention, and re-emphasizing the one who sent us, I think we are all set up for a final Act 3 story involving all of these threads tying together. 61, Resurrection. This has to be one of the best episodes of Ghost Game, right? A disturbing but heartbreaking premise that anybody who's ever experienced loss can understand, wanting so badly to believe the person you lost is still with you. That very human feeling is wrapped up in a larger-than-life Digimon story featuring one of the most deadly monsters in the series' history. Zed Millenniumon appears and has been powering Manami's corpse. Ogoromon says, according to the English subtitles, Hito, Zed Millenniumon is catastrophic. There's no telling what kind of damage it may inflict on the world. We then get quite a long battle with the action starting up around the 13-minute mark and running for a solid 10 minutes. When the dust settles, Zed is turned back into that moon crystal form. Ruli says, hey, what do you want to do with it? Hito says, I'll hold onto it. Kyo says, are you kidding? It's too dangerous. What if something like what happens today happens again? And then Hito curiously says, if something happens, then we'll all fix it together again. He pretty easily convinces them it's a good idea and that they're right, and then we cut to his Digivice VB and see its light dim. It goes black. Then, in a scene reminiscent of the times that Black Agumon, Black Growlmon, Black Gargamon watch Ghoulish sightings, the show seemingly communicates that this is a moment we should remember because we see Black Tailmon watching from the rooftop. I think episode 61 is Digimon Ghost Game at its most successful, firing on all cylinders with the unsettling but still PG-rated horror. Finally, there's the Crystal Moon Millenniumon to talk about. Since Millenniumon is basically a god of space and time, maybe this will be the key to separating Ghoulish Gamamon from Gamamon. Great episode, one of Ghost Game's finest, a top 10 episode for sure, and one that should not be skipped. Now on to 62. Strange incidents keep happening in the apartment building where Ruli's friend Aoi lives. And on the other side of town, someone else is moving. Espimon is moving out of the dorm, thinking that hanging around with the fake Hito isn't going to help him find the real hero, and that if he was with the real hero, he could finally evolve. A handful of Digimon we haven't yet seen in Ghost Game, like Impmon, are present on floor 13.5 in corner Aoi. Espimon, of all people, finds her, telling her sometimes the dimensions connect and humans wander into this side. She's of course happy to see Espimon, who she recognizes as Hito's other hologram. It's great to see that she was allowed into the AR field, and this is the first time I thought, oh my gosh, she is going to be Espimon's partner in the 4th Digidestined. Clavis and Siriusmon get into a weird argument about squatters and unoccupied apartment buildings until Espimon intervenes to lend Siriusmon a hand, even though he's only a rookie. Quote, if only I could evolve. Then he says, hey, fake Hito, if you say you're the real Hiro Amanokawa, then evolve me right now. If you can't do it, then that means I'm right and you're a fake. And Hiro takes this to heart, and in a scene that I guess was supposed to be emotional or hype-inducing, but really did nothing for me, he proclaims, I'm the real Hito, and then Espimon has a true evolution animation sequence. Unlike Ryudomon or the Hawkmon earlier in the show, for example, Hito even orders attack names just like he does with Gamamon evolution forms. It is truly Espimon partnered with Hito via the Vital Bracelet. This is a true blue evolution partnership. Hito asks if Espimon will finally accept that he's the real Hito, and he kind of embarrassingly replies like, yeah, about that. And then when the battle ends, Ruli tells Aoi about what you saw, and she gets cut off. Aoi says, forget about it. Actually, Espimon, you ran away from home. Want to come with me? Sadly, I don't think this makes Aoi a true 4th Digidestined. Like, I don't think she's coming with us in all the new adventures moving forward, but what a weird way to do this. Huge mixed messages from my point of view. She kind of knows what Digimon are. She knows Espimon is more than just an AI hologram. She declines Ruli's offer to get a proper explanation of Digimon, and then she wants to buddy up with Espimon at the end, who can now Digivolve, but only with Hito's help, not through Aoi. And they seem to have wrapped up the fake Hito element of Espimon's character in the strangest way possible. Hito screaming, I'm the real hero, did nothing for me other than make me shake my head that this was seemingly the payoff for a plot beat that has always been bizarre and concerning since it started up in episode 38 when Espimon debuted. 24 weeks have passed, and this is kind of the payoff for that. It was not amazing to me. 63. Gluttony. Ruli goes to a cake buffet with her friends. After that, something strange happens to her. No matter how much she eats, she's still starving and nothing will satisfy her hunger. Knowing that there are only about 5 episodes left in the series, I am bringing that knowledge and sort of mindset into watching this episode. Espimon is still hanging out with Hiro despite moving out last week, or temporarily moving out. It's basically an official Espimon is Hiro's partner moment, not Aoi's partner, even though Aoi ended the episode asking if Espimon wanted to come to live with her last week. Ruli biting Gaomon's tail is one of the most cursed things I've seen in this show, so points there for sure. Quartzmon is stealing life energy from people when they eat the little candy-shaped parts of itself that distributed through town. That's how Ruli got infected. In a twist I was very pleased with though, Quartzmon reveals the reason why it's been taking human life energy is because it's actually hosting a ton of baby Digimon inside itself. Quote, "We were suddenly expelled to the human world. I used my clones to feed them by collecting humans' life energy." Honestly, this twist that he was a protector coupled with the fact that he looks like a Lilith from Evangelion threw me for a huge loop. I loved this, not gonna lie. Then Clockmon shows up riding on Airdramon to warn us that Digimon are rapidly flooding into the world at a rate we haven't yet seen. Quote, "Apparently someone is telling them to escape to the human world." So this is it. This is the endgame we were saying is coming. This is plot. Do I wish we got plot before endgame? Absolutely, but things are happening and will be snowballing from 64 onwards it seems. Almost 23 years after the premiere of the legendary Dark Ocean episode of Digimon Adventure 02, where Kari was transported to a third world and where we witness a horrifying Cthulhu-looking shadow monster through the fog, we finally have Digimon acknowledging that episode and paying homage to it in the 64th episode of the latest anime, Digimon Ghost Game. In its 64th episode, they utilize what may be their final opportunity for a Monster of the Week to sort of pay tribute to where Digimon horror all began by bringing back the Cthulhu-looking Dagomon. Our main character, Hiro, is compelled to head towards the water and go on a fishing trip on board a boat. He hears chanting and learns that everyone on board is worshipping a mysterious Digimon when they're all engulfed in fog. Kano Weissmon battles Dagomon, and Hiro's allies follow Kano's light to find them through the fog and provide backup. Late in the battle, the Cthulhu monster's skin changes color into a new black Dagomon. The entire length of Ghost Game, we've been seeing odd black Digimon like Black Tailmon, Black Agumon, Black Growlmon, but getting no explanation for them. Here's our first real suggestion that maybe those Digimon did not start out in the black form but are infected by some kind of virus, potentially the GRB factor from Regulusmon's official description. At this point, the Black Dagomon is utterly unstoppable, and it's only when Black Tailmon, our Uber Deliverymon of Ghost Game, shows up and creates a gigantic portal that transports it out of the human world, presumably into the digital world. The digital world seems to have disappeared, or at least they can no longer sense it. We of course need to mention that Hiro's father comes back into the human world at the end, accompanied by a Terriermon assistant. It was exciting to see him appear, but also a bit frustrating that over and over again the story comes to them in this show. The kids never take proactive steps. They didn't reach out and find Hokuto. He appeared in front of them one day. We learn the electronics across the globe are now offline. Then we get the suggestion that perhaps the digital world itself just disappeared. It's a great cliffhanger that has the potential to set up an amazing final act for Ghost Game if Digimon Ghost Game uses its final few episodes wisely. Ghost Game had more episodes than almost any other Digimon series before it, and with those extra episodes has done virtually nothing with its story. So please use your final few episodes here, Ghost Game, to reward people who watched every episode of the show weekly. The 65th episode of Digimon Ghost Game finally allowed our heroes to step into the digital world, a place that has been teased since episode 1 and is literally the source of all our problems, with something or someone mysteriously sending Digimon from that world to the human world. This was Act 1 for our 3-part finale to a season with minimal story that has been hinting that rewarding payoffs were always just around the corner. So how did the beginning of the end go? We have a debriefing in the warehouse. Angoromon and his club of nomad Digimon have been meeting weekly, with Hokuto and the adorable Terriermon assistant leading the meeting. They don't tell us anything we don't already know though, just a reminder of where things stand basically. We then get the scene from last week's preview of Hiro up at night with the power out, Gamamon and Espimon sleeping in bed, and Hiro is just staring at the Moon Millenniummon crystal that he kept from a few weeks back. But this is hardly the scene that some theory crafters hoped it'd be. Hiro doesn't make a deal with this god of space and time to reverse the events of the last few episodes or anything like that. He just stares at the crystal and then the scene ends. There are still 2 more episodes for this to pay off, but I've been saying there's still time for X to be paid off for 65 weeks, and it was pretty painful seeing Moon Millenniummon here possibly just being used as one of the many familiar faces this week. We get one of the most important scenes of the episode up next, the team and Hiro's dad discussing options into the digital world. It's finally time for an explanation for how Hokuto went there despite Pokemon saying humans would burn up on entry, and this scene was brutal, almost embarrassing to see the characters stumble over multiple bare bones explanations for why the team couldn't go to the digital world sooner. First, Hiro's dad said the Digivices have a built-in feature that lets you go all along. Turns out we could always go, we just didn't know what buttons to press. this. Then Hiro reminds him that, wait, Pokemon said humans would burn up. So Hokuto says, oh, in my case, my Digivice malfunctioned. That's why it allowed me to go and also teleported the space around me. But then Terriermon adds, you can pass through if you're with a Digimon. Okay, except we never saw Hokuto with Terriermon or any other Digimon during his initial trip. So that point is kind of irrelevant. Like, he succeeded without a Digimon, but because it malfunctioned, okay. Hiro's team brings up the burning up again, and then Bakumon says, oh, actually, yeah, I meant to tell you guys, Professor Pokemon was lying about burning up because he thought you weren't ready to go yet, and that the time would come one day when you'd be ready. I'm sure the time Professor Pokemon was referring to has come. This is so frustrating. The main reason we didn't try going sooner was a lie, but also we are drowning in half-baked explanations for why the kids couldn't go sooner, and it feels to me like all these explanations are a little weak, and the writers are hoping we'll just accept one of them as a plausible reason. But I think if you had a really strong lore reason, you wouldn't need 3 reasons. Kazuamon shows up and she says she can take us. It's a total mess, guys. I don't know how anyone can defend how this played out. 65 weeks to get to the digital world, and the biggest thing stopping us was a Digimon who lied. So finally we do go, and the scene is pretty cool. Some of the human kids like Nomura are listening from the other side of the door, and I liked all of this, but really this should have happened 30 episodes ago. Upon arrival, first thing we see is a digital world corrupted by the black and purple colors of Gulas Gamamon, though nobody on the team connects the dots and says this looks an awful lot like Gulas' color palette. Black Rafflesimon, who wants to absorb life forms to live forever, I guess. She, of course, has no idea who the voice sending Digimon into the human world is, and she gets our Kyoshiro Norded. Now it's Seriousmon versus Black Rafflesimon, and he's kind of losing. Seriousmon is backed into a corner when the voice of Gulas comes out and says, yo, if it were me in control, I'd be able to save everyone. But here, Seriousmon gets absorbed only for Rafflesimon to immediately burst. Her body can't handle the strange power of the Gamamon line, and she spits him out, then fades away, freeing everyone, including our old friend Saberdramon, that kind of black Birdramon, who tells us that maybe the voice, the one who sent us, is coming from a weird cloud island in the sky that never moves despite the winds. So we go there, a Bloom Lordmon makes its anime debut, blocks our path, and that's the end of the episode. We have 2 episodes left and still don't have knowledge of who the antagonist of Ghost Game is, who the one sending Digimon to the human world is. I think at this point the writers have put themselves in a very tough spot because it's going to be incredibly hard to make this reveal feel worth the wait. Allowing a mystery to build up for 66 weeks means the pressure for it to pay off is astronomical. Very worried. Keep in mind Blacktailmon is still MIA and there are 2 episodes left to explain her presence, but yeah, good luck Ghost Game. Prove me wrong, but I don't think they have the storytelling chops to land this plane. And I'm sad that in the 3rd last episode we opted to battle another one-off fill-in of the week instead of answering questions or introducing the final boss. If we were just going to fight more Monster of the Week enemies when we got to the digital world, then we really should have come to the digital world 30 episodes ago. I don't think I'll ever agree with the pacing and the story decisions of Ghost Game, sadly. Digimon Ghost Game's second last episode was really good. We got the evolution for Gulas Gamamon, Regulusmon, we got an explanation for what's been going on in the digital world, the GRB, our closest look yet at the entity that has been sending Digimon to the human world, the human friends of Hiro and the gang coming to finally understand that Digimon aren't just holograms, and an amazing tag team of Seriousmon, Amphimon, and Dilbitmon versus the Black Dragon of Destruction himself, Regulusmon. So was the episode good enough to win back skeptical fans? Has Ghost Game been amazing all along, or is it still disappointing? Standing in front of Bloom, Lordmon Hiro says Lilithmon said there's a being sending Digimon to the human world, but before he can finish talking, Bloom Lordmon slams the ground and says, I will protect the great being who has focused on this world to give us a better future. And here we finally get all 3 megas fighting side by side. From this point onwards, it's completely go, go, go. Bloom Lordmon says we don't need help. Our Lord already saved the digital world by sending them to the human world. This is interesting. So the great being has in fact been sending Digimon to the human world, and that was its strategy for saving the digital world. We go inside Gamamon's mind where Gulas' voice explains all the reasons why Gamamon needs to let Gulas take the lead in this battle. Bloom Lordmon finally says something about Gulas and the state of the world that is very important. Quote, the dark entity inside you is the one who corroded the digital world. But before he can elaborate, Gulas emerges from within Gamamon. Here it's sounding like Gulas truly is a separate entity that existed outside of Gamamon and hid inside Gamma's body for over a year and a half. We get an in-universe mention of Gulas Realm Burst, GRB for short. It increases a Digimon's survival instincts and fighting power. Gulas left some of the GRB behind, and we get this little shot of a little venom-like symbiote thing falling off of Gamamon's tail and touching the ground of the digital world itself. Apparently that was Gulas corrupting the world. Nothing explaining why Hokuto specifically thought Gamamon was important to send to Hiro in the human world. Something is going on with Hiro's Digivice. Bloom Lordmon loses a beam struggle to Regulusmon, though Regulusmon's horn is shattered. Hiro catches on to this. Everyone gets sucked into this galactic dimension. Gamma and Gula's entities are able to split apart, at least in this spacey dimension. Kano Weissmon goes back into the Siriusmon form, so now it's Regulusmon versus Siriusmon. An amazing fight, again, top-notch Ghost Game animation. Feels like we're winning, we're on top of the world when Regulus blasts a hole straight through Siriusmon's chest, ending the second last episode on an incredibly dark note. This episode slapped, this ruled. We got a surprising amount of explanation for what has been going on in the show, which surprised me because of how much the show has starved us of explanations up until this point. I don't like that we didn't learn any of this until the second last episode, but the way it was delivered here, while fast, wasn't nearly as weird and corny as it was in 65 when Hiro's dad tried to explain the Digivices and the portals. Still, Black Agumon, Black Gargamon, and Black Growlmon, in addition to Black Tailmon, were nowhere to be seen this week, which is alarming. There are 22 minutes left of Ghost Game, and I'm going to be incredibly disappointed if they play no role in the climax. And just remember, it's not that they just appeared each one time every time Gulas did. During his fourth appearance, they all three appeared together, signaling they were some kind of group and not just Digimon being created or corrupted on the spot when Gulas appeared. It's not correct to say, wow, Ghost Game answered everything in 66. It definitely didn't, but it answered a lot in 66. So let's see what they have in store for us in 67. I have thoughts, I have questions, I have praise, and I have criticism. I don't think anyone quite predicted how this show would end. A lot of you in the comments are very clever, and I don't think anybody, myself included, had this ending on their Ghost Game bingo card. We pick up precisely where we left off with a hole in Siriusmon's chest. Gamamon is in some purgatory state. Hiro then dives into Gamamon's heart, Kingdom Hearts style. Hiro finds Gamamon, is able to save him by calling him his little brother, and then we exit Siriusmon's heart to find a healed Siriusmon ready for round 2 against Regulusmon. Dilbitmon and Amphimon are ready to help, but Siriusmon forbids them, which is kind of a bummer, a huge raw deal if you're a big fan of these characters. In the series finale, Kyo, Ruli, and their partners had nothing to do, frankly. Then in one of the most horrifying sequences of the series, the mouth of Siriusmon opens up and he devours Gulas like a nightmare version of Kirby, allowing Gulas and Gamma to have a quiet one-on-one conversation inside of Siriusmon's body. It's very brief though. Gulas just says, "I was devoured? Really?" Gamamon smiles and Gulas continues, "Okay, fine, it's my loss." And then we see glowing white data pouring out of Gamamon into the digital world, purifying the land and the Digimon who were affected with that black and pinkish purple color scheme of Gulas. And that is mostly the end of Gulas Gamamon. We get a bit more in part 2, the back half of this episode, but there we have it. After 60 plus weeks of build-up and anticipation, Gulas is inside Gamamon. Again, except this time he accepts he's not the strongest, I suppose. Arcturusmon is not here, Proximamon is not here. These evolutions were not promised, but it is odd that our final episode of the series had no new evolution. Bloomlordmon lets us enter his master's chamber so we can finally meet the voice. It's a brand new Digimon, Quantumon, who knows all about us. She's been connected to the team through their Digivices. Here, with about 10 minutes left, Ghost Game tells us everything, and it's messy, it's clunky, it's kind of silly. She says, "I am the one who sent Digimon to the human world to protect them from the corrosion and cut off the digital world to stop the spread. Emotion. Illogical human emotion is unlike anything we Digimon have. While I may understand emotion as data, I can't experience it. I sent Digimon to collect data on human emotion." So, okay, if we rewind to episode 1, Clockmon, Gamamon, it appears that Quantumon sent characters like Clockmon into the human world so that they may experience human emotion and relay that back to her, I suppose. Quantumon worked with humans over email to develop items like the rice cooker Black Tailmon used in episode 8 to create portals, and the Digivice itself, which she apparently made in collaboration with Hokuto, though like the other humans, he wasn't aware that this online collaborator was basically a god of the digital world. So here we have our answer to the Digivice. It was made by Hokuto, but it was also made in collaboration with Quantumon, and I don't think he really understood the extent of what he was making. This part was extremely messy to me. It felt like them trying to explain why Black Tailmon brought back some Digimon, but not all, retroactively. I didn't particularly care for this part of the lore dump. And it seems I'm not the only one though, because Hiro and the other humans push back on this as well, saying the Digimon did this without knowing. You used Digimon like they were your pawns, like some sort of game. Quantumon says perhaps, however, it was necessary. She says that witnessing synchronization with humans led to such amazing evolutions. Quote, "I immediately introduced a limiter, but it couldn't prevent mega evolutions." Here, I guess she's talking about the limiter on the Vital Bracelet whenever we'd go to Ultimate and then power down. But why did she introduce a limiter? This actually may be my least favorite part of this exposition dump, because they're now just trying to check off boxes. If she was interested interested in seeing the results of human and Digimon synchronization, then why limit it? And also, the limiter didn't work as they achieved Mega anyways. This is so weird. We're drowning in questionable exposition when Gamomon's eyes go black, suggesting Gulis is still in there, and then the boys show up. Black Gargamon, Black Agumon, and Black Growlmon. I'm excited to see them. Quantumon says, don't worry, they were sent to monitor Gulis Gamamon and are immune to the GRB. So they are not part of Gamamon's dark GRB army, but instead immune to it and serving Quantumon. I'm extremely glad these three and Black Tailmon did show up in the finale, but it doesn't mean I'm impressed with the payoff. No battle, no evolutions. It feels like they just showed up so that fans like me technically can't say that part of the story wasn't paid off. They were here in the end, but they were incredibly pointless the whole way through. Gulis's voice comes out of Gamma's body but isn't wanting to fight. It says, it's coming. The Endbringer. Gulis tells us where he originally came from, and it's so incredibly silly, and this is where, in my mind, the ending of Ghost Game truly goes off the rails. Are you ready? Gulis's origins. Quote, I came from space. The planet I'm from was devoured a long time ago, but my mission isn't over. I will devour it. I guess Gulis wants revenge on whatever destroyed its homeworld. Was it a living thing, a meteor, an exploding star? Unclear. It doesn't matter. So Gulis left its home planet, but arrived in the digital world. When will it get to Earth? So here I'm thinking maybe the Endbringer is coming like right now, even though that would be incredibly rushed. And in the final few minutes of the show, Proximamon fights off a meteor or some cosmic horror. Or maybe Moon Millenniumon's powers over space and time come into play, but no, it turns out the Endbringer is going to reach the human world in 2,000 years. Quantumon, we need to call back all the Digimon. So here she's forcing them to split, I guess wanting to protect Digimon over humans, suggesting their world would be safe, but this is all messy. Do we know if there are any ramifications to the digital world if the human world is destroyed by the Endbringer? Anyways, Hiro and his friends say things like, no, we should stick together and work together to stop the Endbringer. We can coexist. There has to be a way that avoids collapse. We then see some Digimon sent back to the digital world and digital devices come back online. Back in the digital world, Quantumon looks at the kids and said, you will all become leaders who bridge the two worlds and create a new country where Digimon and humans can live hand in hand. I want to point out here, they're saying Kuni, and the Crunchyroll subtitles say it's country, but Kuni is a tricky word to translate. Lots of ambiguity. It can be translated as country, nation, state, kingdom. So are they creating a literal new country, a new land? It's super vague. More time passes, not a significant amount though. Hiro is giving some kind of presentation. Quote, the new nation of humans and Digimon will be an uninhabited parallel digital world Quantumon is providing. In my notes, I just have question mark here. This is so vague and unexplained. So they are creating a new world that humans can leave Earth for to inhabit with Digimon. So I guess Hiro and friends are trying to get as many humans to sign up to join them in their new third dimension. Kiyoshiro is rushing over to some African conference when he gets a call from the president. Ruli is on piano reading their new country's national anthem. Again, I have no idea what is happening anymore. This is an absurd pivot for Ghost Game. Hito, back from his speech, is reading emails in his dorm, I guess. He says, wow, I have so many messages. There's so much to do. Gamamon says, I'm right here with you. Hito says, thanks, Gamamon. Gamamon says, I'm Gamamon, Hito's little brother. And that's how and that's the end of the show. That's how we end what I believe to be the strangest Digimon show to ever exist, with the strangest Digimon finale to ever exist, I think. I think this ending was ridiculous, but 67 certainly didn't redeem Ghost Game or solve all my problems. In the 11th hour, we have a new sinister force, the Endbringer, which we do not get to see, we won't see for 2,000 in-universe years, long after Hito and his friends have died, unless they live for eternity when digitized or something like that. Maybe their consciousness can live on, but who knows, because Ghost Game had no time to explain how any of this will work. I wanted so badly to be pleasantly surprised by the finale, just like I was pleasantly surprised by 66, but this was such a weird mess. I disagree with so much of the writing of this show and the overall roadmap. So much potential, so little reached. I do want to shout out all the animators who worked on this show. I fundamentally disagree with the writing choices of this show, but I think Ghost Game consistently looked gorgeous in motion and just the character models in general. Brilliant looking show, brilliant designs, fantastic animation, so congratulations there. I think Ghost Game has one of the strongest starts in all of Digimon, with a dark tone, incredible monster designs, great characters, and an intriguing mystery, but it fails or stubbornly refuses to let those great characters grow or to expand on that intriguing mystery. Unlike past Digimon series that have told complete stories with multiple arcs and had overarching villains that last 10 to 20 episodes at a time in a 50 or 60 episode season, Ghost Game has committed to an almost strictly episodic nature. Digimon has always had episodes that could be enjoyed as standalone stories, but fit within a larger story. There was a lot going on in the background, and a domino effect with the events of that week leading into the next. The status quo was changed, our characters have learned lessons that we take into the next episode, and we're one step closer to a goal. Ghost Game instead chooses to reset the status quo back to normal at the end of every episode. Even when a Digimon absolutely terrorizes all of Tokyo, nobody's talking about it in the next week. Sometimes people do learn about Digimon only to be written out and never mentioned again. On paper, there's nothing wrong with a purely episodic show, especially when that's what you set out to make. Batman the Animated Series and countless others tell single stories in their episodes, and then we more or less reset in time for the next episode. So if we don't criticize those shows for being that way, then why am I criticizing Ghost Game for adopting an episodic style? Well, that's because Digimon Ghost Game won't commit to being episodic, wanting to be both strictly episodic and also a serial, i.e. a show with a continuing plot like past Digimon series. The show keeps reminding us that we should keep these things at the top of mind and adds new mysteries into the mix. In episode 13, after Ghoulless Gamamon first appeared, a black Agumon was spotted looking on from above. When Ghoulless reappeared in episode 21, a black Gargamon was watching this time. The reason a show like Batman the Animated Series is immune from this criticism that there's no overarching story is because it doesn't constantly try to remind you there is one and then never deliver. Like if at the end of a SpongeBob SquarePants episode we zoom in on Dark Patrick watching over SpongeBob from the distance, then 20 episodes later Dark Squidward is creepily watching from above with no explanation, we would want to know what those episodes were about and when we were going to return to that. Since it does present us with story beats and carrots on sticks that it never commits to paying off, it should be open to having its story or lack thereof criticized. Those characters who we previously said were great, super promising starting points for memorable Digimon protagonists, they've been frozen in arrested development for a year of their teenage lives. Hiro is kind to a fault. Kiyoshiro is scared but sometimes manages to find courage in replicating his favorite anime heroes. They're lovely characters that have been robbed of the ability to evolve into anything more than their character bios. And speaking of evolution, in the best of the prior seasons, Digimon's evolutions were used as visualizations of the characters overcoming some trauma, fear, or other kind of obstacle in their life. The humans' little monster friends turning into hulking beasts was a metaphor for having an emotional breakthrough. Because the show's characters do not grow, the evolutions are no longer visualizations of the growth and progress of their bonds. Nowhere was this more painful to watch than in Gamamon's Ultimate Form debut episode. Any sense of development, payoff, or gratification was entirely missing from Kano Weissmon's Ultimate debut, and the same goes for Angoramon's Ultimate Form because they both just showed up when needed and now we have them on hand forevermore. I want to revisit that interview with series head writer as interpreted by With the Will and return to another standout line that gives us an explanation from the head writer's point of view for why Ghost Game is the way it is, why it's only ever done one and done single story episodes. With the Will interprets that the basis in the writing was looking at TikTok and YouTube and the creative staff believing kids tend to jump off after a minute due to boredom and the feeling that it's hard to make them watch longer stories. They're also worried that if it's a serial, they may not see the beginning and will skip it, or if it's too long, they will watch half and give up. So he feels it's hard to write serials for kids and teenagers. I find this a rough paragraph to get through. It is not a very generous assessment of kids and teenagers' ability to consume quality media, basically doubting their own audience's attention span. While there's no denying the way that social media and video on demand apps have changed the way we consume media, it feels totally backwards. One surefire way to lose an audience's attention is to show them the same thing over and over again and not answer their questions. I've no doubt upset some portion of my audience who wants to celebrate Ghost Game week over week by pointing out these criticisms, and in some ways I get it. The complicated part with all of my Ghost Game feedback is that if you take any Ghost Game episode and isolate it, it's a pretty great episode of anime. There are a ton of Ghost Game episodes that I adore, but it's when you line up 50 plus of them and realize they're all so very similar, and it becomes a bit jarring to realize that each one is essentially a reskin of the last episode. So how to wrap this up, let's deliver a verdict. Digimon Ghost Game is a fun, episodic, almost horror anthology with little one-off stories set in the Digimon universe, and I would recommend trying it out or at least looking up a list of the best episodes and watching those. But what I'll say is this, if you liked the first 10 episodes, then that's awesome. The next 40 episodes follow the exact same formula with no changes to the status quo, no new setting, no new humans to join the team, no known villain. So if you're okay with episodes 11 through 50 being just like episodes 1 to 10, you're gonna have a great time with Ghost Game. If you enjoyed the first 10 episodes but you're expecting the story to pick up and go somewhere, you're gonna be sorely disappointed with episodes 11 to 50. But hey, the nice thing about Digimon, which has been true since 1999, is that they reset the rules and shake up the formula every season. So if this latest Digimon series isn't for you, it's not the end of the world. For all we know, the next one that comes around will be the greatest thing you've ever seen.